I woke up in a huge castle with a splitting headache. Memories were crashing together in my mind, my old life and this new one. I remembered how I died. A truck smashed into my apartment on the 7th floor. Just like that, my boring gamer life was over. Now I'm someone else. I'm Lin, the illegitimate son of Count Harrist, living in a world of swords and magic. Not the best position to be in, honestly. But when my memories merged, I got something amazing, a power called deduction. It can break down and simulate how magic works. My situation isn't great. I have a half-sister, Alicia, she's a kind priestess, and a half-brother, Alfred, a golden boy training to be a holy knight. Both of them are already at rank 3. Me? I'm stuck at rank 2 with mediocre talent. The Countess, Isabella, treats me okay at least. But Alfred? He hates me. He thinks I'm stealing his mother's attention. That first night, I couldn't wait. I tested my deduction power on a rank 2 spell called Ice Arrow. After half an hour, my mental energy was draining fast, but I could feel it. 10 days of steady practice and I'd learn it. Normally that takes over a month. I got greedy and kept going for another hour. I blacked out and didn't wake up until noon the next day. My head felt like it was full of needles. Lesson learned, don't push too hard. After that, I was careful. During the day, I played the quiet, invisible nobody everyone expected me to be. At night, I worked on Ice Arrow, picking apart every rune, every magic circuit, every detail of how ice energy flows. Then one day in the hallway, I ran into Alfred and his little entourage. He spotted me and his smile vanished. He started mocking me in front of everyone, calling me gifted, sarcastically, saying I hide in my room because I know I'll never catch up to him. I kept calm and smiled politely, but when he pushed harder, I said something back. Talent matters, but so does hard work. Everyone went silent. Nobody expected the quiet, obedient bastard son to talk back. Alfred's face turned bright red. His battle aura started flaring up, golden light around his body. He was ready to fight me. Rank 3 against rank 2. I had no chance in a fair fight. I quietly gathered a tiny bit of cold energy in my palm, my unfinished Ice Arrow, the only card I had. Then Alicia appeared and stepped between us. She calmed Alfred down, told him a future holy knight should be more generous. She asked me to be patient with him since he's younger. I nodded and agreed. The crowd broke up. Back in my room, I locked the door. My heart was pounding. Alfred's hatred and that suffocating pressure from his aura stuck with me like poison. I sat down and threw myself into deduction harder than ever, pushing to finish Ice Arrow. A few days later, at a quiet training ground behind the castle, I felt it, a cold stream flowing through my magic circuits, connecting everything. The spell structure became perfectly clear. Water elements in the air rushed to my hand like obedient soldiers. I raised my palm and spoke the incantation. Sharp, gleaming ice arrows formed out of thin air and shot forward with a scream. They hit the granite target stone and blew it apart. Cracks everywhere. Deep holes punched clean through, frost spreading across the surface. I lowered my arm, fingertips still cool, looking at the destroyed target, then at my own hand. I finally let myself smile. It was just a basic rank 2 spell, but it was my first real punch back at fate in this world. My first glimpse of light in the darkness. After learning Ice Arrow, I couldn't stop thinking about Alfred's smug face. I needed more power. I went to the castle's big round library. The ceiling was tall, and the oak shelves were packed with old books that smelled like dust and ink. I headed straight for the Elements and Shadow section and started flipping through spell books. I already knew a decent number of spells, basic ones like Fireball, Wind Spirit, Water Ball, Earth Shield at rank 1, and a few rank 2 ones. But it wasn't enough. Then I found 2 books with darker covers, Black Feather and Erosion. Erosion caught my eye immediately. It creates a dark fog that blocks vision and eats away at holy light energy. That was exactly what I needed against Alfred and his shiny golden aura. I grabbed it without hesitation. I sat down and memorized every rune, every syllable, every magic circuit. Then I started deduction. It was much slower this time. Dark magic was completely new territory for me. My gut told me it would take about 22 days. So I waited. During the day, I kept up my usual act, quiet, harmless, maybe even a little cowardly. At night, I pushed through the dark magic maze in my mind, watching the black fog swirl and take shape on my mental screen. 22 days later, erosion was ready, and the timing was perfect. Alicia had been sent away on a mission. The peacekeeper was gone. When Alfred showed up in the hallway with his usual arrogant expression, I didn't look away. I stopped, stared him down, and said it straight. "Alfred." "Training ground." Now, he was stunned for a second. Then his face lit up like a hungry wolf spotting a lost lamb. He practically dragged me to the training ground, afraid I'd change my mind. The moment my feet hit the sand, I moved. 2 spells, rapid fire. Shadow, spread, wind, protect. Thick black fog exploded outward from me, swallowing every bit of light. At the same time, wind energy wrapped around my legs, making me fast and light. Alfred fired up his holy light shield, a golden bell of energy around his body. In that darkness, he was the only light source, which also made him the easiest target. He charged at me like an angry golden bull, swinging his training sword. But I didn't fight him head-on. That would be stupid, a mage going toe-to-toe with a knight. I used my speed to slip through the fog like a ghost, throwing water arrows at his shield from random directions. Each hit slowed him down and drained his battle energy. And the whole time, the dark fog was chewing away at his shield, hissing like water on hot iron. "Get out here and fight me like a man," he screamed. "I'm a mage fighting a knight," I called back from somewhere in the dark. "Use that muscle-stuffed brain of yours." The game went on. His golden glow got weaker. His breathing got heavy. Then he stumbled after a failed charge, and I struck. Entangle, vines I'd hidden under the sand burst out and locked around his ankles. He couldn't move. I poured every drop of magic I had left into my fingertips. Ice arrow. Bigger, colder arrows than I'd ever made tore through the fog and slammed into his weakened shield. It shattered into golden sparks. The impact knocked him flying. He crashed into the sand, armor scratched with ice marks, blood on his arms and face, dust in his golden hair. The fog faded. I walked up to him, pale from using so much magic, but standing straight. I looked down at him and said it clearly, "I don't want to be your enemy. We share the same blood." Drop the arrogance. He glared up at me, burning with humiliation. "This time you win," he hissed through his teeth. "But this isn't over." I gave him a small smile. "I'll be waiting." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could feel the stares from every family member who'd watched. Shock, suspicion, maybe even a little fear. The invisible bastard son had just beaten the golden child. Back in my room, I didn't celebrate. I picked the fight apart. Was my magic spent wisely? Could I have timed erosion better? Was my vine trap hidden well enough? Could the final ice arrow hit harder? I won because of surprise and tactics, not raw power. I still had a long way to go. I returned to the library, but this time I looked deeper, past single-element spells, into books about combining elements. I didn't want to just stack spells. I wanted to create something new, something that mixed the flexibility of water with the sharpness of ice. Deduction ran over and over. Water currents and ice crystals crashed together in my mind, merging, breaking apart, failing. It was like swimming blind in a dark ocean. But I didn't stop. Finally, a new spell took shape, Ice Wave. I tested it at the training ground. I gathered more magic than I'd ever used for Ice Arrow and chanted a spell that blended water and ice rhythms together. Spring is the base, frost is the blade. Ice Wave, surge. A wall of rushing water 2 meters high exploded from the ground, and inside it, jagged chunks of ice spun and crashed like fangs. The whole thing slammed into a heavy steel training dummy. The dummy crumpled like paper, twisted into scrap metal, and got smashed deep into the stone wall behind it. Ice shards sprayed everywhere, punching holes into the ground and walls. I stood there breathing hard, watching the wreckage. The power was far beyond anything Water Arrow or Ice Arrow could do alone. I let myself smile, but the smile faded quickly. My fingertips were shaking and numb from dumping so much magic at once. I looked at the craters in the stone wall. I still had limits, and I needed to push past them. The cold light of Ice Wave faded from my fingers. I stood by the tall arched window, staring at the jagged gray mountains at the edge of the earldom. My mind was already far ahead. Inheritance. I chewed on that word silently. I knew my father, Reynard Harris, well enough. His thin, fatherly love and the iron rules of nobility meant one thing. When Alfred and I came of age, the best I could hope for was being tossed to some remote corner with an empty barren title and a piece of barren land that even bandits wouldn't bother with. All the good territory was already carved up. The real wealth and power would go to Alicia. I couldn't just sit and wait for that. I had a plan, and alchemy was the first lever. It wasn't just about speeding up my training. It was a path to money and independence. A foundation for building something real on whatever wasteland I'd be given. I went back to the great round library. The smell of old parchment and ink hung in the air. I found the alchemy section and nearly choked. The books filled an entire wall, from plant guides to reaction theory to cauldron techniques. A year and a half just to learn the basics, I muttered. I pulled out a book called Basic Magical Plant Identification. The first entry was about the ice crystal tree. It grows in frozen northern plains and high mountain snowlines. Its fruit is the key ingredient for a rank 1 ice crystal potion, which boosts a mage's mental power and sells for serious money. I ran my finger over the illustration and could almost feel the cold coming off the page. These books were treasure. I had to take this knowledge with me to my future territory. Father Reynard was too busy drinking and chasing women to care about magic books. Alfred only cared about swords. And Mother Isabella and Alicia were kind enough. With a good reason, borrowing some book copies wouldn't be a problem. I picked out the most important theory books and carried them back to my room like they were made of gold. For 3 days straight, I buried myself in them, using deduction to help me crack the difficult plant properties, reaction formulas, and magic guiding techniques. Once I had a basic grasp, I decided to try making a rank 1 spirit potion. The ingredients, blue mushrooms, black tree branch, dark grass, and spark leaf, were all sitting in the castle storeroom. The alchemy lab was gathering dust and used. In the lab, I lit the flame under the cauldron and followed the steps carefully. Blue mushrooms went in first, melting into green liquid. Then I slowly sprinkled in finely ground black branch powder, bit by bit. The liquid turned dark green and started spinning, giving off a strange herbal smell. Finally, I dropped in crushed dark grass and spark leaf at the same time. A thick burst of blue-green smoke shot up with a small pop. The liquid churned wildly and shifted to a deep blue. I held my breath, staring at the cauldron, guiding the reaction with my mental energy. Half an hour later, the smoke cleared. At the bottom of the cauldron sat a small pool of clear blue liquid, exactly like the textbook described. It worked, but did it actually do anything? I needed a test subject, and one name jumped straight into my head: Alfred. A rank 3 Holy Knight's body could handle a little rank 1 potion, no problem. I poured the potion into a crystal vial, put on my most sincere smile, and found Alfred polishing his sword. "My dear brother," I said with maximum warmth, "look what your big brother made for you. A rank 1 spirit potion. Great for training." Alfred stared at me suspiciously, then at the glowing blue liquid. After our fight, he was a bit wary of my tricks, but he sniffed the bottle, smelled nothing weird, and figured, free potion, why not? He tilted his head back and drank it all. My heart almost stopped. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then his eyes went glassy. He started swaying. A stupid grin spread across his face. Hee, so many shiny golden butterflies, he mumbled, waving his arms around trying to catch things that weren't there. He stumbled around and bowed to a stone pillar like it was a noble lady. My stomach dropped. The blue mushrooms, I must have processed them wrong, and they caused hallucinations. I checked his pulse and energy flow. His body was fine, just his mind was going wild. He's going to kill me when he snaps out of this, I thought. I looked at the other vial in my hand, the evidence. Time to disappear. His body would burn through the side effects in about half an hour. I needed to be very far away by then. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, a roar shook the training ground. "Linny in. I'm going to kill you." Alfred had woken up bright red with shame. Apparently, he'd been hugging a training dummy and calling it Big Sister. The humiliation was total. but then something stopped him mid-rage. He circulated his holy light energy and noticed it felt slightly more active, more refined than before. And his head, which had been foggy from the hallucinations, was now sharper than usual. His thinking felt quicker. The potion actually worked. A lightning bolt hit that muscle-packed brain of his. His annoying big brother could actually make useful stuff. Revenge could wait. Getting more potions came first. He launched a full-scale search. He cornered every servant asking where I was. He camped outside my door listening for sounds. He even tried to get hints from Mother Isabella, who had no idea what was going on. For days, I was a ghost. And Alfred, the newly converted potion fan, was scratching his head, desperate and itching to find me. After nearly a month of studying alchemy and running deduction nonstop, what I always expected finally happened. My father, Count Reynard, who couldn't wait to get rid of his sons, gave both me and Alfred the title of Baron and sent us away. My territory was a place called Maple Ridge, sitting at the very edge of the earldom. The moment it was official, I started preparing. My top priority was the library. I needed copies of every book in that round study hall. But when I actually began sorting through everything, magic theory, potion recipes, history, combat manuals, I realized how massive the job was. It took me and a few loyal servants 2 full weeks of day and night work just to pick, count, and pack it all. In the end, 27 heavy carts were needed to carry my knowledge treasure. As for money, I was practically broke. 3,000 gold coins and nothing else of value. Father did throw in a 10-man knight squad as an escort, led by a rank 2 knight named Calvin, with 9 rank 1 knights under him. I suppose that was his last gesture of fatherly decency. Or maybe he just wanted to make sure we'd survive the trip to our exile. On the day we left, I climbed into the main carriage and looked out the window as the wheels rolled over the cobblestones. The great harassed castle shrank behind me, that enormous, cold place where I'd spent 16 years. I felt something complicated stir inside me. Relief? Sadness? The weight of the unknown. I turned away and didn't look back. The first few days were peaceful. Green hills, wide grasslands, clear streams. The night stayed alert while I sat in the bumpy carriage reading alchemy books, trying to learn as much as possible before we arrived. Then we entered a narrow valley, and everything changed. A sharp whistle cut through the silence like a death signal. Dozens of dark figures poured out of the trees on both sides, blocking us front and back. Enemy attack. Formation, Calvin's voice thundered. The knights drew their swords instantly and formed a tight ring around my carriage. I dropped my book and pushed open the door. Over 70 bandits, ragged clothes but real weapons gleaming in their hands. Hungry, vicious eyes. Their leader was a big brute with a thick beard and a heavy-backed cleaver. "This is my road," the leader bellowed. "Leave the money and the carts if you want to live." Calvin rode forward, armor catching the light, voice steady and cold. "This is a harassed family convoy. Back off or die." The leader hesitated for a second, then laughed. "Earl or not, on my turf, even a dragon bows. Get them, boys." They charged like a wave. Some of them even had battle aura. These weren't ordinary thugs. Calvin met them head-on, his sword a silver streak. Blood sprayed. He cut into their charge like a hot knife through butter. The 9 knights followed, forming a wall of steel and shields, holding the line with every clash and roar. I didn't hesitate. Wind, protect. I cast Wind Spirit on myself for speed. Ice Arrow. I targeted a bandit trying to sneak around the flank. The arrows hit perfectly. He froze solid on the spot, coated in thick frost. Fireball. A blazing orange ball slammed into a chainhammer bandit. The explosion swallowed him. Nothing left but a charred patch on the ground. Water Arrow. A stream of piercing shots knocked several bandits off their feet. Entangle. Vines ripped through the earth and locked down a whole group, pinning them in place. My spells tipped the balance fast. The fight lasted about half an hour. The bandits lost over half their men. The bearded leader saw it was over, faked a swing at Calvin to create space, and screamed for retreat. The survivors scrambled into the forest and vanished. Calvin rode back to me, blood on his armor, breathing steady. "Baron, are you all right?" I shook my head slightly, pale from using so much magic. "I'm fine. Thanks to you and your men." I looked toward where the bandits had fled. They were too strong to be common thieves. Some had real battle aura. There might be something behind this. Calvin nodded gravely. Agreed. We should move quickly. After that, the mood was heavy. The knights watched every shadow like hawks. I sat in the carriage with my alchemy book open on my knees, but I couldn't focus. The world had shown its teeth the moment I stepped outside my family's protection. I wanted power, more than ever. The remaining journey felt endless. Then, when the outline of distant mountains came into view, covered in a blaze of fiery red, Calvin called from outside the window, "Baron, we've arrived." Maple Ridge. I opened the window and looked out. It was deep autumn. The mountains were covered in maple trees, red so intense it looked like blood splashed across the land, or flames frozen in place. Breathtaking, but the beauty didn't last. Once we entered the heart of Maple Ridge, reality hit hard. The roads were muddy and full of holes. The villages we passed were miserable, tiny crumbling houses with flaking walls, thin crops barely growing in poor soil. Everything smelled of poverty. When we finally reached the Lord's castle, my heart sank completely. Castle was generous. It was a crumbling old fort. The stone walls were cracked and peeling everywhere. The main gate was rotting wood with rusted iron fittings that groaned painfully when a handful of skinny, patched-up servants pushed it open. More ragged servants stood in the yard, staring at us with hollow, fearful eyes, faces that said they'd given up hoping for anything better. I stood beside the carriage, looking at my new home. The autumn wind bit through my clothes, throwing dead leaves against me. The maple trees burned red all around, but there was no warmth in any of it. Just the heavy weight of responsibility and a territory that needed to be rebuilt from nothing. My life as a lord began right here, in silence, in ruin, with everything still to be done. The carriage wheels rolled over the threshold of Maple Fort, kicking up dust against the old stone walls. When we stopped, my housekeeper Violet was the first one out. She'd taken care of me for 16 years, and she didn't need a single word from me. She walked straight up to the nervous servants standing in the yard and took charge like she owned the place. One sharp look and she already knew exactly what she was working with. I stood with Calvin and looked around. A shy young maid came forward, and Calvin told her to lead us to the study. I nodded, and we followed her inside. Compared to the harassed family castle, Maple Fort was plain and poor. But I noticed something that surprised me. The hallways and stone floors were worn down, but spotlessly clean. Old portraits hung on the walls, their paint faded and cracked, but the people in them still carried themselves with pride. Someone here had been trying to keep this place decent, even as it fell apart. That small detail gave me a bit of comfort. We stopped at a heavy wooden door with a rusty lock covered in dust. The maid fumbled through a ring of green-stained keys until she found the right one. The door groaned open and a wave of mold, dust, and stale air hit us in the face. The study was buried under a thick gray blanket of dust. Tall bookshelves reached the ceiling, but they were nearly empty. Dirty sunlight struggled through grimy windows, and dust particles danced wildly in the pale beams. Desks and chairs sat randomly, all covered in years of neglect. But I wasn't seeing decay. I was seeing possibility. All that empty space was exactly what I needed for my 27 carts of books. A kingdom of knowledge would start right here. I went straight back to the courtyard and found Violet already barking orders. I told her to have the study cleaned top to bottom, every shelf, every surface. She picked out the quickest workers without hesitation and sent them running with brooms and rags. After that, Calvin and I walked through the entire castle. The damage was everywhere. Wind howled through broken window frames. Some floor stones were so loose they shifted under your feet. The garden had turned into a jungle of weeds taller than a person, with a cracked, bone-dry fountain in the center. The storehouse was dark and damp, full of rusted spear shafts, rotten furniture, and dusty crates. I cracked one open, rusty chest armor pieces, barely recognizable. The previous lord had clearly given up on this place long ago. By the end of the tour, I had a clear picture. Everything needed fixing. But first things first, settle in, then plan ahead. Dinner was in the great hall. Violet had set up a simple table with what little we had. Rough bread with a real wheat smell, and a small pot of stew made mostly from root vegetables and a bit of salted meat. It was hot, and the steam pushed back some of the cold emptiness of the hall. Calvin, Violet, and I sat together, our voices echoing off the stone walls. "Calvin," I said, tearing off a piece of bread, "what are your thoughts on defense?" He put down his spoon, face serious. "It's bad, Baron. The walls have cracks wide enough for a child to crawl through. The gate hinges are rusted, the wood is rotten, it's barely a door anymore. We need to patch the walls and replace the gate first. The watchtowers around the perimeter must be cleared and manned with rotating shifts. After those bandits in the valley, the threat is real and close." I nodded. "Defense comes first. But money is tight, so every coin counts." I turned to Violet. "What about inside?" She wiped her mouth neatly and answered without missing a beat. "Your bedroom needs to be set up properly. Warmth and comfort are priority. The study is already underway. Other rooms can wait, but we must seal the drafty doors and windows. We're badly short on servants and need to recruit reliable people soon. The kitchen barely functions. We need pots and storage containers. And the water pipes seem blocked somewhere." I listened carefully, sorting their advice in my head, weighing what to do first. A rough but clear plan started forming. After dinner, a maid led me to my bedroom by the dim glow of an oil lamp. The room was cold and empty. A big four-post bed sat in the middle with clean but rough, stiff blankets. Worn linen curtains drifted weakly in the night breeze. I walked to the window and pushed it open. Cool air carrying the scent of grass and trees filled the room. I stared out at the dark sky dotted with faint stars and the silent outline of Maple Ridge below. This was my first night in Maple Fort. Strange, bare, full of challenges. Turning this ruin into something real would be a long, hard road. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I felt the thrill of standing on ground that was truly mine. My knowledge from another life, my deduction gift, the strength I'd built, the books I'd carried, all of it was a blade I'd been sharpening, and now I finally had a place to swing it. Over the following days, the castle slowly woke up like a sleeping giant. The study was scrubbed clean until the windows gleamed. Violet personally oversaw the books being sorted and shelved. 27 carts worth filling those tall, empty shelves until the room felt heavy with knowledge. It became my command center. Calvin turned his knights into builders. They cleared trash and weeds from the wall bases, marked every crack with chalk. The rotting gate was taken down, and the doorway braced with thick logs. Knights started standing watch in the cleaned-out towers, scanning the borders of Maple Ridge. Violet posted notices to recruit servants and screened everyone carefully. Drafty windows and doors were patched. The kitchen got new iron pots and clay jars, and the smell of proper food started filling the halls. Everything was still simple, but bit by bit, this forgotten castle was coming back to life. With the castle patched up enough to stop falling apart, I knew it was time to see the real state of my territory. A strong castle means nothing if the land around it is dying. I decided to visit Mapletown City Hall myself. That morning I dressed in a simple black baron's robe with a sword at my waist. Violet wore her usual sharp housekeeper outfit. Calvin and his 9 knights stood ready in polished armor. We climbed into the carriage and rode out. The road to town was short, but what I saw through the window made my stomach sink. The fields on both sides should have been green and full of life. Instead, the crops were thin and weak. The soil looked drained. The land was barely alive. Mapletown appeared quickly. Stone and wood buildings, rough and plain. The streets were nearly empty. A few villagers glanced at us with dull curiosity. Violet guided us to the city hall, a 2-story stone building with faded walls and a crest above the door so worn you could barely make it out. Inside, it smelled like old paper and dust. A few workers in faded uniforms were half-heartedly sorting through mountains of files. Violet walked up to an older one and asked where the former mayor was. The man looked up with tired, helpless eyes. "The mayor? He died of illness about 2 years ago. Since then, until you arrived, Baron, this place has been like an orphan. Problems piling up, nobody making decisions, nobody knowing what to do." He spread his hands, completely lost. That explained everything I'd seen. The rot started at the top. They led us to an archive room. Dust fell when we opened the door. Shelves packed with folders and ledgers, all buried under grime. I dug through them myself until my fingers were black with dust. I pulled out a yellowed book labeled Population Census. The number read 12,834, but the date was 7 or 8 years old. I let out a long breath. Even basic population data was that far behind. The mismanagement ran deep. The deeper I read, the worse it got. Monster attacks happened almost every year. Goblins, kobolds, low-level but vicious creatures that raided constantly and kept everyone living in fear. Huge amounts of farmland had been abandoned because of the monsters, lost workers, and a lord who didn't care. The farming methods still in use were painfully primitive. Commerce was dead, crafts were dying. Everything matched the empty streets I'd walked through. The one small comfort: the staff told me the last monster attack was about 3 months ago, small scale, mostly goblins and kobolds. Calvin and his knights could handle that level of threat with proper defenses. I knew I wasn't an expert at governing. I handed the heavy stack of records to Violet. Sort through everything. Analyze it. Find every key problem and any useful clues. I need a clear report on where this territory stands. She took the files without hesitation, eyes calm and confident. Leave it to me, Baron. That look was all the promise I needed. After that, I walked through the town with my knights as escort. Most shops were shut, rusted locks on closed doors. The few still open had no customers. Shopkeepers leaned against door frames staring at nothing. We stepped into a blacksmith shop. The forge was burning hot, and a big sweaty man was hammering a glowing piece of iron. He stopped when he saw me, wiped his face with his dirty apron, and spoke in a rough, tired voice. Baron, business is terrible. Monsters come every few days. People can barely stay alive, let alone buy new tools or fix weapons. The fields are abandoned. Nobody has money. A few crude farm tools sat beside his anvil, untouched. I nodded quietly. Monsters and dead agriculture, 2 hands choking this town's throat. We went to the only tavern next. Dark inside, smelling of cheap beer and sweat. A handful of regulars sat in corners nursing cloudy drinks and complaining in low voices. I sat somewhere out of the way and listened. But the watermill's axle has been broken for half a year. Nobody fixed it, can't even grind the wheat. Tax collectors? No mayor, no one bothers. But the roads keep getting worse. Your bones rattle just hauling a cart. Heard Blackstone Valley got a new plow last year. Their harvest improved. When's it our turn? Broken roads, ruined infrastructure, no information flow, outdated technology. More pieces of the puzzle clicking together in my head. By sunset, I headed back to the castle carrying a heavy heart and a head full of problems. Maple Ridge was in worse shape than I'd imagined, but the weight of it sharpened my resolve rather than crushing it. That evening, Violet, Calvin, and I sat around the table in the great hall under flickering candlelight. Violet reported first, her voice clear and precise, cutting through the mess to lay out cold reality. Baron, Maple Ridge faces 4 core crises. First, total collapse of order. The entire administration is dead, no officials, no structure, no rules. It must be rebuilt from scratch. Second, the monster threat. Regular attacks are the biggest obstacle to safety and recovery. We need real defenses. Third, economic collapse. Massive farmland abandonment. Extremely backward farming techniques. Tiny harvests. This is the territory's foundation crumbling. Fourth, broken connections. Roads and infrastructure are so damaged that movement inside the territory and trade outside it are nearly impossible. Calvin spoke next with a soldier's directness. For the monster threat, I recommend setting up watchtower posts at the castle, Maple Town, and key mountain passes immediately. Form a standing patrol led by my knights. Recruit and train local young men in basic combat to build a rapid response force. And we should reach out to neighboring territories for intelligence sharing and limited trade, especially for defense supplies. I looked at both of them, then at the candle flame, and made my decisions. Violet, you're in full charge of rebuilding order. Recruit trustworthy people, define every role clearly. Taxes, security, farming, construction, and write simple, effective rules for the territory. That's the skeleton everything else hangs on. Calvin, defense is yours. Pick locations for posts, train militia, organize the armory, build contacts with neighbors. I want Maple Ridge able to stand up to whatever comes. As for me, I stood up and tapped the table. Reviving the farmland and increasing harvests is the lifeline. I'll personally work on improving farm tools and finding better growing methods. That dead soil has to come back to life. Night settled over Maple Fort. A battle for the survival of this territory had been quietly planned by candlelight. The real test was just beginning. After handing off farming to Violet and militia training to Calvin, I focused on a deeper problem. Maple Ridge's magic energy was almost non-existent. Meditating here was like trying to drink from a dry riverbed. Magic recovery was painfully slow. For a mage, this place was basically a prison. Strangely though, night training wasn't nearly as effective since knights rely more on physical strength than magic. But building only knights wasn't enough. I needed magic for defense, production, and long-term growth. The magic drought had to be broken. Then a memory from my past life hit me. Spirit-gathering formations from cultivation novels. They pulled spiritual energy from the environment and concentrated it. Magic energy worked the same way. What if I could use deduction to design a magic gathering array based on that concept? It was an insane idea, but I had no choice. I found a massive book in the library, Complete Fundamentals of Magic Arrays. The thing was heavier than any dictionary I'd ever seen, packed with ancient text and impossibly complex rune patterns. Normal study would take years. I didn't have years. I slammed my hand on the page and activated deduction. The tangled mess of symbols lit up in my mind. Lines separated, reorganized, revealed their hidden logic. Deduction tore through that. Impossible. Book like a decoder breaking a cipher. My life became a strict routine. Mornings. Wake at first light. Eat. Then meditate. Even if the magic here was thin as mist, every drop counted. Afternoons. 4 hours of deep study in the library, pushing deduction to its limit until sweat beaded on my forehead and my mind couldn't take any more. Meanwhile, Violet was reviving the farmland, organizing workers, introducing crop rotation, teaching better planting methods. Green shoots started appearing in fields that had been dead for years. Calvin was drilling the militia hard. Fitness, weapons, squad tactics. Discipline was forming, and the outline of a real fighting force was taking shape. After 2 weeks of nonstop work, I closed the book for the last time. The fundamentals of magic arrays were fully mine. Every principle, every rule about how runes interact, how magic flows through formations, how one tiny mistake can collapse an entire structure. I understood it all at a level I never had before. Now it was time to take the magic gathering array from idea to reality. Once I mastered magic array fundamentals, I jumped straight into designing the gathering array. The first big question was materials. Jade came to mind from old cultivation novels, but I had no idea if it worked with magic here. Gemstones would be ideal, but way too expensive. Luckily, I brought some decent crystals from the Harris Castle. They'd have to do. A full month of deduction later, the array design was complete. A model using crystal as its core, with detailed crafting steps included. I had amethyst or brought out and ordered the blacksmith to build a basic refining furnace. Crafting took everything I had. First, I melted the amethyst with controlled magic fire. Hours of intense focus. One slip and the crystal would be ruined. Then came the real challenge. Carving array runes into the molten crystal with pure mental and magic energy. 3 days of painstaking work, and I had my result. 4 palm-sized array discs with purple rune patterns. 1 main disc, 3 secondary ones. I placed the main disc in a cellar beneath the study. Calvin buried the 3 secondary discs in a triangle formation around the castle, treating it like a top-secret mission. Then I went to the cellar alone, pressed my hands on the main disc, and pushed magic into it. The connection was instant. I could sense all 4 discs linked like stars in a network. Magic began flowing toward them from every direction through the earth. After 10 minutes, the array hit a tipping point and started running on its own. The magic concentration around the castle, which had been nearly zero, began climbing steadily. Within 3 days, the area around the castle, especially the garden, had several times more magic than before. Still nowhere near magic-rich regions, but enough for my meditation and for growing low-level magic plants. I picked green leaf grass as my first crop, a key ingredient for rank 1 recovery potions, tough, easy to grow, and always in demand. I planted 50 seeds I'd brought from the Harris Castle in specially prepared soil in the back garden. The maids just needed to weed and water regularly. Days later, tiny green sprouts broke through the dark earth. The territory's first magic plants were alive. Meanwhile, everything else was moving forward too. Calvin's militia was getting stronger, still raw, but disciplined and showing real potential. Violet's farming reforms were paying off, with abandoned fields turning green again and harvests trending upward. Maple Ridge was finally waking up, and the Gathering Array had given it the engine it needed. The Gathering Array solved my magic problem, but money became the next crisis. Maple Ridge had no mines, no special products, nothing to generate income. No wonder my father dumped this land on me. The green leaf grass was still growing and wouldn't bring cash anytime soon. What I needed most was a real magic refining furnace to craft weapons and magic items for sale. I used deduction again. Thanks to my array knowledge, the furnace design only took 7 nights of work. Days I spent meditating and studying alchemy. Nights I burned through mental energy mapping out every structure and integrated array. When it came time to build, I barely had enough amethyst left from the array project for a miniature furnace. The real difficulty was fusing 3 separate arrays, ignition, temperature control, and structural reinforcement, into a single crystal body in one go. Half a day of razor-sharp focus later, the furnace took shape, a small purple 3-legged vessel radiating magic light. I collapsed on the floor immediately after and slept until deep into the night. The mental drain was brutal, but I now had the heart of a production operation. The next problem hit fast: no mineral resources. Buying materials would drain my already thin budget. The only option was finding ore deposits in my own territory. But I had no prospecting experts and no leads. So I turned to deduction once more and started designing a spell to detect underground mineral veins. Estimated time: 13 nights. During the day, I handled territory business, checking crops, consulting with Violet, studying alchemy. The wheat fields were looking promising under Violet's management, with harvest approaching ahead of schedule thanks to the magic environment. But grain alone couldn't lift Maple Ridge out of poverty. Finding minerals was urgent. On the 5th night, I hit a wall. Natural magic interference underground kept scrambling my spell's detection results. Nothing I tried could filter it out. I was stuck. Then one night, staring at the stars through my window, it hit me. Why fight the interference when I could use it? I redesigned the spell to resonate with specific natural magic frequencies, turning the noise into reference points for locating deposits. That breakthrough blew the problem wide open. Progress accelerated. By night 10, the spell was functional, and after 3 more nights of refinement, the ore-finding spell was complete. 13 sleepless nights, bloodshot eyes, but I was ready to scan the mountains and hills of Maple Ridge for whatever riches might be hiding underground. Meanwhile, Calvin's militia had shaped up into a disciplined force, and Violet's farming improvements were producing visible results across the fields. The territory was moving forward on every front. The morning after finishing the ore-finding spell, I tested it in the castle yard. The results blew me away. With my rank 2 magic, I could cast it over 20 times, detect 100 meters on the surface, and penetrate 30 meters underground. Far better than expected. I grabbed Calvin, and we headed north that afternoon. The rocky hills were miserable. Thick brush, clouds of mosquitoes, snakes in the grass. As a mage, my body isn't built for hiking, and I was wrecked by sundown. The spell found nothing. We came back covered in bug bites and empty-handed. Day 2, we went west. Just outside Mapletown, we hit a dense primeval forest. Massive trees blocking the sky, toxic mist, rotting ground crawling with poisonous insects. Terrible place. But a few miles in, the spell pulsed hard. I pushed through the vines and found it. Copper ore, big yellow-green deposits exposed on a cliff face, with signs of more hidden inside the rock. The problem? 2 kilometers of nightmare forest between this spot and town. Mining here would be extremely difficult and expensive. The mosquitoes alone nearly ate me alive. I ordered a retreat. Day 3, I pushed through east and south. East of town, just 3 kilometers away under a hillside, the spell detected iron ore buried 25 meters deep, impossible to find without magic. Then heading south toward the sea, I found jade deposits scattered near the road surface. Jade was huge. I'd been wondering whether this world's jade could conduct magic, and now I could finally test it myself. Continuing south, in a sea cave about 12 kilometers from the coast, I hit the biggest prize, sea blue crystal, or a rank 2 magic-conducting material even better than amethyst. Massive deposits glittering on the cave walls. I rushed back to the castle, bathed, and called Violet immediately. When I listed everything, copper, iron, jade, and sea blue crystal, her composure cracked for the first time. She called it a gift that could change our fate. She was right. I ordered mining operations to begin at once, with jade samples prioritized for my magic conductivity tests and sea blue crystal marked as the top moneymaker. Violet transformed into a mining director overnight, recruiting workers, planning tools, mapping transport routes, setting up storage. Calvin's job got harder too. Valuable mines attract greedy eyes, so he ramped up militia training, expanded patrols, and set up guard posts around the mine sites. At the same time, Violet reported that most of the wheat had ripened while I was exploring. Harvest was already underway. Looking out my window at the golden fields and thinking about the mineral wealth beneath our feet, I felt the weight of months of exhaustion start to feel worth it. Maple Ridge was transforming from a forgotten wasteland into something with a real future. Finding the mines was a huge relief, but getting the ore out and turning it into real wealth would take time. My biggest worry was safety. Maple Ridge sits between dangerous forests full of monsters, and the annual monster surge was coming next year. I needed to be ready. I started using deduction at night to design magic armor for Calvin and the knights. If I could put them in enchanted gear as a frontline wall while I blasted magic from behind, we'd stand a much better chance. The design would take a full month. 2 days in, Violet came to me with an urgent problem. The roads were so terrible that even if we mined the ore, we couldn't transport it. She was right. I thought about cement from my past life, but there was no limestone anywhere nearby. So I went with the simple option, stone roads using the rocks scattered all over Maple Ridge. I ordered 3 priority routes built to connect the copper mine, iron mine, and the southern jade and crystal mines. Then I drew up plans for a brick kiln from memory, something I'd seen in survival videos in my past life. The basic design was clear enough. Dig a pit, build stone walls with clay, shape a dome top with a smoke hole, seal it tight. I handed the blueprints to Calvin since Violet was already juggling too many jobs. I chose to make blue bricks instead of red. Harder, more durable, better for road paving and building foundations. I couldn't afford to waste my own time on construction projects. My magic talent is average, so every spare hour had to go toward meditation and pushing my abilities higher. That hunger for power, carried over from my past life, never stopped driving me. A month passed. The 3 stone roads were finished and functional. Calvin built the kiln exactly to my specs, with blue-gray smoke already rising from it. And deduction delivered the complete magic armor crafting method right on schedule. Everything was ready. I just needed the ore to start flowing. Meanwhile, Violet had miners recruited, trained, and equipped, with work camps set up at each site. The green leaf grass in the garden was growing beautifully under the gathering array's magic. I assigned mates to track its growth daily. Calvin's militia had become a real disciplined force without him ever letting up on training. With bricks now in steady production, my next steps were clear. Pave Mapletown's roads, build or processing workshops and storage facilities, and prepare for the flood of raw materials about to come in. And underneath it all, my own magic power kept growing through daily meditation, slow but steady, like the mineral veins hidden under our feet. When the first batches of sea blue crystal and jade arrived at the castle, I went straight to work. Purifying the raw crystal took half a day of constant magic fire control, exhausting but not complicated. I got just enough pure crystal for 1 set of armor. I crafted what I called the blue light armor for Calvin. It had 3 integrated arrays: a rank 1 combined defense array, a rank 2 wind speed array, and a rank 1 fire burst array. I deliberately mixed ranks because Calvin's battle energy is limited. Stacking all rank 2 arrays would drain him instantly. I split the armor into 6 pieces and crafted each one separately over 6 sleepless days. It nearly broke me, but the finished set was perfect. Then I tested the jade. It purified far faster than crystal, under 30 minutes. When I pushed magic into the refined white jade, I discovered it had excellent rank 1 magic conductivity. That was a game changer. It meant I could use jade to mass-produce armor for the 9 rank 1 knights. With my experience from the blue light set, each jade armor took about 3 days. 1 month later, I had 10 complete sets, 1 blue, 9 white. Calvin and Victor nearly stopped breathing when they saw the lineup. Magic armor was something they'd only heard about in legends or seen on elite noble guards. I had them suit up and we ran tests outside. Calvin in the blue light armor was terrifying. With the wind array active, he covered 100 meters in under 2 seconds, triple his normal speed. Victor couldn't leave a scratch on the armor with a full power sword strike. And the fire burst array unleashed a massive wall of flame across a 50-meter arc, though it completely drained Calvin's energy in 1 shot. The white jade sets were weaker but still impressive: good speed boost, solid defense against rank 1 attacks, and a smaller fire burst that could still clear groups of low-level monsters. I distributed the remaining 8 sets to the rest of the knights. As for loyalty concerns, every armor had a backdoor in its core arrays that only I knew about. But honestly, anyone with eyes could see Maple Ridge was transforming. Following me meant a future worth having. Meanwhile, Violet kept pushing brick roads through town, and shipments were flowing steadily along the new routes. The territory finally had both armor and resources. Maple Ridge was no longer a stranded wreck. It was a ship with real sails and real armor, heading into open water. 6 months after arriving at Maple Ridge, I felt the breakthrough coming. The wall between rank 2 and rank 3 was cracking. I handed everything to Violet and went into seclusion. 2 weeks of deep meditation later, the barrier shattered. Rank 3 mage. The first thing I tried was flying. It was shaky at first, but I got stable quickly, speed comparable to a galloping horse, though it burned magic fast. Long-distance flight wasn't realistic yet, and outside the castle's gathering array zone, the thin magic made it even harder. Calvin and Violet were waiting when I landed. They gave me the territory update. Population was 14,327 across 17 villages, plus about 2,000 in Maple Town. Calvin had trained 1,000 militia to combat-ready level. They just needed proper weapons. Town roads were fully paved with blue brick. Mining was stable for copper and iron, though jade and crystal output was still low. The big news: deep inside the crystal mine, they'd found sea blue essence crystal, a rank 3 material, extremely valuable but rare. Farming was fully restored, and the harvest would feed the entire territory with surplus. Maple Ridge had finally found its footing. Time to consolidate. The essence crystal sparked an idea for a rank 3 gathering array, but that could wait. The current one still worked fine. What I really wanted was something I'd dreamed about since my past life: a flying sword. 2 months of deduction produced the complete crafting method. The design was far more complex than armor: levitation array, wind control array, defense array, and a rank 3 size-changing array at the core. I used the precious sea blue essence crystal and spent 2 sleepless days and nights at the furnace. The result was the blue cloud sword, a blade wrapped in pale blue light with cloud patterns etched along its body, humming softly like it was alive. I climbed the tallest tower, stepped onto the enlarged sword, and launched into the sky. 1,000 meters up, wind screaming past, stars within reach, the entire territory shrunk to a toy beneath my feet. The freedom was incredible, but I stayed clear-headed. This sword was good for flying, not so much for real combat. Rank 3 made me the strongest person in Maple Ridge, but in the wider world full of powerful nobles and higher-ranked fighters, I was still small. There was a long way left to climb. With the militia trained, they needed weapons. I Our iron mine could supply enough for spear tips and short swords, so I had the town blacksmith forge those. 1,000 sets of armor was out of the question, too expensive and time-consuming. For my own power, I needed a rank 3 attack spell. Fire magic was my first choice, but living next to a massive primeval forest made that reckless. An uncontrolled wildfire could provoke whatever terrifying things lived deep inside. I chose blizzard instead. 3 months of nighttime deduction while handling territory business during the day. Nearly a year in, I finally took time to ride through my territory and really look at it. The roads were solid gravel now. Mapletown had real foot traffic, and the blue brick streets looked clean and orderly. Still plenty of rundown buildings, but the progress in just 1 year was obvious. I also spotted deeper problems. Almost nobody could read or do math, and farming methods were still primitive. My solution: have the knights teach literacy to the militia first, then eventually build schools once the economy could support it. By August, winter was 3 months away, and with it, the annual monster raids. But this time I wasn't worried. I had armored knights and 1,000 armed militia. 3 months later, blizzard was mastered and winter had arrived. The South's mild climate and a good harvest meant everyone could survive the cold. Then scouts reported monsters massing at the border. Calvin marched out with the full force, knights in magic armor, 1,000 militia with spears and blades. I stayed behind the lines and cast blizzard. The sky went dark. Freezing wind and massive snowfall swallowed everything in a 10-mile radius. Every ice crystal carried cutting magic energy. The monsters froze mid-charge, bodies stiffening, movements slowing. Weaker ones dropped like cut wheat. Stronger ones staggered forward bleeding from countless ice cuts, barely able to fight. Calvin seized the moment and led the charge. The knights blazed through the crippled monsters, and the militia pushed forward like a wall of spears. It was a slaughter. Most monsters died on the field. The few survivors fled into the mountains, badly wounded. Afterward, I ordered every useful monster material collected: fur, claws, magic cores. Nothing wasted. And I told Calvin to intensify scout training, especially long-range patrols in bad weather. One victory didn't mean safety. The next wave could come anytime. Winter pressed on, and we stayed sharp. Winter was kind to us. Only that one monster wave, and my blizzard wiped out most of them. The green leaf grass in the garden finally matured after a full year under the gathering array. Beautiful quality, but selling it was impossible out here in the middle of nowhere. I stored it all for future potion making. I laid out plans for the new year around 3 goals: expand magic plant cultivation, diversify our food crops, and develop farming-focused spells and arrays. My own advancement had also hit a wall. Rank 3 meditation was painfully slow. The only way forward was to build the territory's resources and let them feed my growth. Classic farming route from cultivation novels. I picked 5 rank 1 magic plants covering all 5 elements: gold thorn grass, green vine, water blue flower, red flame flower, and thick earth vine. Then I used deduction for 2 key tools. A rain spell took 4 days, and a 5-element gathering defense array took 9. I crafted 5 jade array discs in 3 hours and set them up in the castle garden, 1 for each element in the proper positions. Once activated, magic flowed between the 5 plots in a self-sustaining cycle. I planted 25 seeds per plot, assigned maids to water and weed daily using rain spell 3 times a day, and gave them access tokens for the array barrier. Then I raided the seed storage for something I'd been craving: rice. Found it, plus chili peppers and cabbage. Rice needed water patties and warm weather, so that waited until spring. Meanwhile, I used deduction to learn several utility spells: a needle spell for pest control, a soil loosening spell, a flame spell for clearing land, and a rank 2 flying spell called cloud riding for daily travel, less flashy and cheaper than the flying sword. When spring came, I planted peppers and cabbage in the garden corners. For rice, I flew out to a nearby field on my cloud spell, burned the weeds with flame magic, loosened the soil, flooded it from a stream, and planted seeds in nursery beds. 10 days of 3 times daily rain spells later, the seedlings were ready. I used Mage Hand to transplant them into 5 acres of prepared paddy, like a magical planting machine. Back at the castle, everything was progressing. Militia literacy training going well, Calvin's drills never stopping, Violet managing the territory smoothly. The magic garden was thriving with 5 colored plants glowing with elemental energy. Outside, 5 acres of green rice swayed in the spring breeze. Soon I'd have magic plants for potion making and real rice on the table, plus chili peppers. After a year of bland bread and stew, I could almost taste stir-fried pork with peppers. More importantly, once I proved these crops worked, the techniques would spread across all of Maple Ridge. For months after planting, the magic plants in the garden were thriving far ahead of schedule. What normally takes a year was going to mature 3 months early thanks to the array. The rice paddies outside had grown into a sea of green. Everything was on track. Then inspiration struck. I had piles of white jade in storage. What if I carved basic farming spells, soil loosening, rain, and flame weeding, into jade pieces with a built-in storage array that could recharge itself in magic-rich areas? Basically reusable spell tokens that anyone could activate. A month of deduction gave me the method. I crafted 3 test pieces in an hour. Each jade charm could cast its spell 3 times over 1 acre of land, then slowly recharge near the castle's gathering array. Field testing blew me away. The soil charm loosened earth perfectly and evenly. The rain charm delivered precise, gentle coverage. The flame charm burned weeds without touching crops. All better than me casting the spells myself. I gave the 3 charms to Violet. She came back half a day later practically running, covered in mud, face flushed with excitement. She called it a miracle. With enough charms, she said, we could divide all farmland into neat 1-acre grids and multiply our output enormously. She reminded me we had over 5,000 free citizens and nearly 9,000 serfs. Plenty of labor if I could supply the tools. I calculated that my jade reserves could produce 1,500 charms. 20 days of crafting. I dove straight in. But something was wrong with the weather. It was only March, yet the air felt unnaturally hot and dry. Nothing like a normal southern spring. The rice leaves were starting to curl at the edges. That heat sat on my chest like a warning I couldn't ignore. I ordered Calvin to increase patrols, forests, water sources, borders, especially watching for wildfires in this strange heat. Then I pushed the crafting pace even harder. Jade charms piled up on my workbench day after day, glowing softly like a small galaxy of hope. But every time I walked the rice paddies and felt the burning wind on those wilting leaves, the unease grew. I had the tools and the plan for a golden harvest. The question was whether this freak weather would let it happen. 2 months of brutal heat passed, but Maple Ridge's rivers held up. I finished all 1,500 jade charms and distributed them immediately. Combined with 8,000 serfs working the land, we carved out nearly 1,000 acres of new farmland in 2 months. The first 5 acres of rice matured early thanks to the charms. Every grain went back into the soil as seed for the new fields. A brand new granary stood ready beside the castle. During those 2 months, I also used deduction to develop a rank 2 magic longbow, a rank 2 mage robe, and the method for a new soil hardening charm. The robe was the hardest thing I'd ever made, melting jade and sea blue crystal into threads thinner than spider silk, etching microarrays for cleaning, defense, and magic gathering onto each strand, then weaving them all together. The bow was simpler by comparison. Crystal and essence crystal fused together with 5-element and wind arrays burned into the body. Half a day of weaving later, the robe was complete. White jade exterior with blue cloud patterns, elegant and powerful. I was satisfied. The 5 magic plants in the garden also matured 3 months ahead of schedule. I harvested all of them, perfect quality, and saved the best seeds, 10 per element. Then came my boldest idea yet. Instead of brewing traditional potions, which needed specialized equipment I didn't have, why not adapt Eastern alchemy and condense the medicine into pills? My refining furnace was basically a pill cauldron already. 3 days of deduction gave me the method, straightforward since I already had the potion formulas as a foundation. I started with gold spirit pills using gold thorn grass as the main ingredient. Following the 5-element generation cycle, water nurtures wood, wood feeds fire, fire creates earth, earth bears metal. Each auxiliary herb went in at precisely the right moment. Water blue flower to soften the metal energy, green vine to fuel the fire element, flame flower to generate earth essence, thick earth vine to stabilize and compress everything. The furnace hummed, colors swirled, and 6 perfect golden pills emerged. Confidence soaring, I kept going through all 5 elements. 100 batches total, 20 per element. 600 pills in all, gold, wood, water, fire, and earth spirit pills, each glowing with their element's color, filling the room with a 5-colored haze and a rich medicinal fragrance. These pills could help ordinary people with no training sense elemental energy and start breathing techniques to become knights. 600 potential warriors sitting in jade dishes. Outside, the abnormal heat wave continued baking the sky an unhealthy red. But inside my workshop, surrounded by shimmering pills and their mingled aura, I felt like I'd struck a well in the middle of a desert. These pills would open doors for people who never imagined having any. 600 pills meant 60 potential knights, 10 pills per person to complete the basic elemental awakening. I gave Calvin the full stock and told him to pick 60 strong, loyal men from the militia. Talent didn't matter much. What mattered was heart and endurance. He was to match each man's breathing technique to the right elemental pill and push them through the painful transformation before the next monster season. Calvin knelt and swore he'd deliver. I could see the fire in his eyes. He understood this would change everything for Maple Ridge. But the real crisis was magic supply. The Rank 2 gathering array was completely overwhelmed. Between my own training, thousands of jade charms pulling magic across the territory, and the garden's magic plants, the entire region's free-floating magic had been drained to almost nothing. I could feel the strain during meditation, like trying to breathe through a straw. A Rank 3 gathering array was now urgent. I calculated 2 months of nighttime deduction. But I also figured out the territory's hard limit. 1 Rank 3 array at the core, plus 1 Rank 2 array further out. More than that, and they'd just steal magic from each other. Magic plant cultivation had to pause. There simply wasn't enough magic to keep seedlings alive. Everything depended on upgrading the array first. I split my days ruthlessly. Daytime, purifying raw minerals in the underground chamber. Jade, sea blue crystal, and the rare sea blue essence crystal all went through the furnace, refined into pure material blocks that would become the bones of the Rank 3 array. Nighttime, deep deduction sessions pushing through the array design. The Rank 3 version was 10 times more complex than Rank 2, a 3-dimensional, multi-layered magic circulation structure, like burying a living, breathing heart underground. Failures were constant. One miscalculated energy node, and the entire model would shatter in my mind. The abnormal heat wave continued. August arrived and temperatures refused to drop. The monster raids were only 2 months away, but this year I planned to let Calvin's forces handle it. The 10 armored knights, the growing militia, and soon 60 new Rank 1 knights from the pill program. Outside, those 60 men were already in hell. Calvin had them training behind high walls, swallowing pills, practicing breathing techniques, screaming through the agony of their bodies being remade from the inside. Sweat evaporated instantly in the heat, leaving white salt stains on their clothes. The curiosity in their eyes was being replaced by pain, grit, and raw hunger for power. The whole territory was a furnace, me refining ore and pushing deduction to its limits, future knights forging their bodies, crops storing energy in the fields, iron flowing from the smelters. Everything being hammered toward something stronger. 2 months of day and night grinding paid off. The Rank 3 gathering array design was complete, and I'd spent every daytime hour purifying minerals into array-based modules, refined jade, sea blue crystal, and essence crystal blocks ready to become the skeleton of the new array. I crafted 5 array discs in 2 sleepless days, buried the main disc 100 meters under the castle, and placed 4 secondary discs at the cardinal points around it. When I activated the array, it nearly killed me. It drained my entire magic reserve in seconds. A terrifying suction force erupted from the castle, pulling every scrap of free magic across the territory toward it. Even the thousands of jade charms in the fields went dark instantly. 7 days to stabilize. When it settled, the castle's magic concentration was at least 10 times the old level. The air felt almost liquid with energy. Mapletown fell within the array's range too. Townspeople noticed the air felt fresher and their fatigue recovered faster, though they didn't know why. Next, I relocated the old Rank 2 array to Sunset Mountain, 40 miles south near the ocean. The sea wind carried rich water element magic, perfect for growing magic plants. I set up a cultivation array there and transplanted nearly 1,400 seedlings across all 5 elements. A few maids would handle daily care, and the future knights would provide security. Back at the castle, I realized my refining furnace wasn't precise enough for higher-level pill making. I spent 7 days designing a dedicated Rank 2 alchemy furnace, the Blue Essence Furnace, optimized for temperature control and energy containment. The same morning I finished that blueprint, I looked out the window at the training ground and watched it happen. One man burst through first, golden energy steaming off his body, fist shattering a test stone to powder. Then the rest followed like a chain reaction. Green, blue, red, yellow, 60 auras erupting one after another. All 60 men had broken through to Rank 1 knight. Former serfs, now warriors. 60 new knights forged from pills, pain, and relentless training. Calvin had delivered exactly as promised. Standing at my window with the castle humming with magic, 60 knights blazing below, and a new furnace design locked in my mind, I could feel Maple Ridge finally becoming something real. December finally broke the long heat wave. The harvest numbers came in, 2.37 million gene of grain. After feeding everyone and saving seeds, we had enough surplus for half a year. The jade charms and 8,000 serfs had turned 1,000 new acres into a miracle crop despite the brutal summer. The new Rank 2 alchemy furnace, the Blue Essence Furnace, was also finished and waiting in the cellar. Then something disturbed that peace. A powerful magic pulse rippled out from deep inside the western forest, at least Rank 3 level. It vanished almost instantly, like it never happened. I couldn't ignore it. I took the blue cloud flying sword and shot toward the source under cover of night. Half an hour later, I was hovering above the forest edge. My spiritual sense swept the area. No battle traces, no magic residue, nothing. Almost too clean. Then I caught a faint smell. Fresh blood. I found a small cave. Inside, on the cold stone floor, lay a dead woman. A dark elf. Beautiful face, deathly pale, black hair everywhere, leather armor torn apart by raw force. But no visible killing wound. No poison, no broken bones. When I probed deeper with spiritual energy, the real horror hit. Her mind was completely empty. Not just dead, erased. No soul fragments. No fading consciousness. Nothing. Something had wiped her entire spiritual existence in one instant. Only an extremely powerful spirit-type magic targeting the soul directly could do that. The killer was precise, ruthless, and left zero traces. I froze the body in an ice coffin, flew it back to the castle, and sealed it in a warded cold room. Back in the study, I searched my library for information on dark elves. Not much useful, mostly old prejudices calling them traitors who live underground. But combining what I knew from past life fantasy lore with the evidence, my best guess was that surface elves hunted her down. Their mastery of spiritual and nature magic fit the kill method perfectly. Why she was alone at the edge of my territory, and what she carried or knew that warranted execution, no answers yet. While researching, my eyes landed on a note about magic cores, the crystals left behind by dead monsters. I had a pile from last year's battle sitting in storage. I sent for 2 and examined one with spiritual energy. Inside was pure chaos, violent, clashing elemental energies crammed together like caged animals, gold, fire, earth, all fighting each other. If anyone swallowed one, the energy would tear them apart from the inside. No wonder they were considered worthless junk. But a new thought hit me. What if I could purify them? Separate the energies by element, extract the usable parts, like refining pills? The raw energy inside was actually substantial. If I solved the purification problem, magic cores could become a massive, nearly endless energy source. Two mysteries now sat on my desk. A murdered dark elf pointing toward dangerous forces lurking near my borders, and a worthless magic core that might hold the key to Maple Ridge's next leap forward. Winter had just gotten a lot more interesting. I shelved the magic core idea for now. The magic plants needed for purification experiments wouldn't mature until August. The rank 3 defense array consumed all my deduction time instead. Meanwhile, everything outside was moving fast. Calvin's 60 new rank 1 knights stood ready. The 900 militia had finished basic literacy. The granary was full with over 2 million gene of grain. Winter had arrived and farming stopped, so I ordered all 8,000 serfs into literacy classes. Militia members who'd already learned would teach them in shifts. The reaction surprised me. At first, the serfs were confused and scared. Reading was for nobles and knights. But when they saw their own neighbors and relatives standing in militia uniforms writing on boards, something clicked. They understood exactly what literacy meant. Reading work contracts, understanding official notices, maybe changing their children's futures. Fear turned to hunger. Open-air classrooms filled up even in freezing weather, with people gripping charcoal sticks and cracked, frozen fingers, copying letters with a focus that bordered on religious devotion. But outdoor classes couldn't last. I planned a large academy building on the east side of Maple Town, practical, expandable, designed for teaching, training, and assembly. The construction project exploded the local economy. Quarries, lumber camps, and the brick kiln ran nonstop. Mining picked up to meet demand for metal fittings. Workers earned wages in copper coins stamped with the maple leaf crest, and they spent them in town. Clothes, tools, food. The blacksmith, shops, and taverns boomed. Traveling merchants started showing up again on roads that had been empty for years. Real commerce was returning. 2 months later, the defense array design was complete. The Cloudwater Vale Array, rank 3, custom-built for Maple Ridge's geography. The concept was simple but devastating. Our territory sits near the ocean with rivers everywhere, so the air is saturated with water vapor. The array would pull all that moisture together, form a massive cloud layer overhead, then compress it into layered blue energy barriers covering the entire core territory. The wetter the environment, the stronger the shield. In this water-rich land, it would take 7 or 8 rank 3 mages attacking together to break through. I crafted the array discs from sea blue essence crystal and planted nodes across the territory, under the castle, on mountain ridges, at river junctions, near the farmland. Then I activated it from the castle's highest point. The effect was instant and massive. Water vapor ripped out of rivers, lakes, soil, and air, rising into a thick white cloud sea that blanketed the sky. Then the clouds sank and hardened into shimmering blue energy barriers, layer after layer, like an inverted bowl covering the castle, town, farmland, mines, and the academy construction site. The whole territory sat inside a protective dome. Servants stared in shock, then cheered. To them it looked like divine power. I finally let myself relax. The foundation was set, but deep in the castle's sealed cold room, something stirred. Inside the ice coffin, the dead dark elf's eyes twitched beneath closed lids. A dying fragment of consciousness, barely a whisper, flashed one broken image. A forest burning with eerie green flames, a pair of cold emerald eyes looking down like she was nothing, and an arrow made of pure spiritual force tearing through her soul. Then the fragment died completely, leaving only silence and frost. The defense array settled into a low-power standby mode, gathering water vapor and forming light clouds overhead, only deploying its full barrier when a real threat appeared. That gave me some breathing room. The territory was running smoothly. Full granary, academy under construction, literacy spreading. But a clear bottleneck emerged: population. Around 14,000 people wasn't enough to fully exploit our farmland and mines. I needed to send trade caravans out to buy slaves, recruit wanderers, and sell goods. Problem was, caravans need armed escorts, and I couldn't spare my 60 new knights or Calvin's core team. The plan had to wait. Then the freak heat came back worse than ever. By March, the air was thick and sticky like hot oil. The humidity plus the temperature turned everything into an unbearable sauna. I noticed fire element magic in the atmosphere had jumped over 20% in just a month. Something was wrong with the climate, and it wasn't natural. I briefly wondered if some powerful fire-type treasure was about to emerge, classic fantasy novel scenario. But I shut that thought down fast. If something like that were real, the Empire's powerhouses, ancient races, and hidden masters would already be circling. A rank 3 baron in the middle of nowhere wouldn't even qualify as a spectator. Instead, I focused on what I could control. Calvin's 10 original knights, my most trusted guards, still carried ordinary steel weapons despite wearing magic armor. Time to fix that. I designed rank 1 magic swords and bows through deduction in about an hour, reinforcement arrays for durability, amplification arrays for channeling battle energy, lightning arrays for speed, and sharpness arrays for the swords, gathering, stabilization, and amplification arrays for the bows. I forged all 10 swords and 10 bows in the refining furnace, etching every rune by hand. Testing was spectacular. Calvin's new sword slid through solid stone like butter, leaving a mirror-smooth cut. Victor's magic bow punched a clean hole through a thick wooden target at 100 paces with a pure energy arrow. The knights were ecstatic. Their combat power had more than doubled. Just as we finished testing, a patrol rider came racing in from the southwest. Near Rolling Stone Valley at the edge of the Black Forest, they'd found fresh tracks from large hoofed magical beasts, deep prints suggesting serious size. And the temperature in that area was significantly hotter than everywhere else, with warped air and wilting vegetation. They hadn't dared go deeper. Rolling Stone Valley. Extreme heat. Large magical beast tracks. Calvin, Victor, and I all looked at each other. Something was out there. I took Calvin and the 10 knights straight to Rolling Stone Valley. The heat hit us like a wall. Air warping, rocks too hot to touch, horses snorting in distress. We left the horses at the entrance and pushed in on foot. My spiritual sense found the source at the valley's core. A juvenile red dragon, sleeping in a natural lava pit. Huge body covered in dark red scales, bat-like wings folded, molten light glowing between its plates. Every breath it took distorted the air with heat waves. Its power level was roughly equal to mine, rank 3. But being young and underdeveloped didn't make it harmless. This single sleeping dragon had been cooking my entire territory for months just by existing. No negotiation. No hesitation. I triple cast Blizzard. 3-layered rank 3 ice storms fired back to back. Instant cast. No chanting. The temperature in that lava pit plummeted from furnace to frozen hell in seconds. The dragon woke up screaming. Ice crystals shredded against its scales. Extreme cold invaded through every gap. Ice piled on its wings before it could even spread them. It locked its molten eyes on us with pure murder, but when it saw me raising my hands for another round, survival instinct won over pride. It scrambled into the air, wobbling and dripping ice, and fled deep into the black forest as fast as its frozen wings could carry it, left behind a trail of steam and scattered scales. I was pale and drained. Triple blizzard burned through most of my magic and mental energy. But the dragon was gone, and on the ride home I could already feel the suffocating heat lifting. The heater had left the neighborhood. Back at the castle, Violet had good news waiting. A traveling merchant named Charlie had arrived with a large stock of high-quality cotton seeds. Perfect timing. Our people had been suffering in rough, airless hemp clothes through this brutal heat. Cotton meant breathable fabric. I told her to start planting immediately on well-drained, sunny land, and have the literate serfs research growing methods from the library. Then Calvin came in with the concern I expected. Dragons hold grudges. That one took a beating and wouldn't forget. Plus the commotion at Rolling Stone Valley might attract other unwanted attention. I agreed. Full alert. All 60 knights on combat readiness, doubled patrols, heavy scout coverage toward the Black Forest, especially around the valley. Any movement gets reported instantly. I stood at the window watching the territory shift into war footing, rolling a scorched dragon scale between my fingers. Somewhere deep in the forest, a furious, humiliated young dragon was roaring its rage at the sky. Let it come back if it dared. The Cloudwater Veil was up, the knights were armed, and I had plenty more blizzard where that came from. The dragon came back, but not to attack. Every morning it flew high above the territory, beyond the defense array's cloud layer, and just watched. No fire, no roaring, just staring. At first everyone panicked. After a few days, people got used to it. Workers on the Academy construction site started joking about the stupid dragon being back. I couldn't figure out what it wanted, but I kept watch. Meanwhile, I finalized standard equipment for the Knight Corps. White jade armor, swords, bows, and spears. All rank 1 magic gear. With our jade reserves, I could produce over 1,000 sets. I also sent Calvin to capture wild horses from the forests for mounts. The Academy was finished, a grand building complex in a Chinese architectural style, because that's what my past life memories could produce. It looked completely out of place next to the rough local buildings, but it worked. Former serfs who'd been the best students became teachers, instructing others in reading and math. I solved the salt problem with a single rank 1 element separation spell, enough pure salt for years. As for glass and soap, the classic transmigrator products, I skipped them entirely. Too much effort, too little payoff compared to just selling magic equipment. Then I found something unexpected deep in the library. A metal box containing scrolls written in dark red ink on monster hide. Dark rituals, blood sacrifices, soul extraction. Forbidden alchemy. Most of it was pure evil. But one recipe grabbed me by the throat. Half-elf longevity potion. Core ingredient, an elf's body. Effect, extending lifespan by up to 500 years. Dark elf material would work, just slightly weaker. I had a dark elf frozen in my basement. I won't pretend I agonized over it. The temptation of centuries of extra life was too massive. I spent 7 days converting the potion recipe into a pill formula using my 5-element alchemy approach, replacing the dark energy methods with balanced elemental techniques. The whole body would serve as material, not just the heart and blood. 7 days and nights at the blue essence furnace. No sleep. When I opened the lid, a single jade-green pill floated at the center, smooth, glowing with golden life force veins inside. The 5-element life-stealing longevity pill. I swallowed it without hesitation, right as Violet walked in to report on the cotton fields. The pill didn't explode with power. Instead, it sank to my core and began releasing life energy so slowly it would take years to fully absorb. A gentle, deep transformation rather than a violent one. That slow pace probably meant less risk of the mutation the original recipe warned about. Just then, the dragon outside roared and dropped lower than usual. It must have sensed the burst of life energy when the pill was completed. Its molten eyes locked onto the castle with fresh curiosity. I stood at the window, feeling the green pill slowly warming my insides, and looked up at that restless red shape in the sky. 2 mysteries circling each other. The dragon that wouldn't leave, and a man who'd just bought himself centuries. 3 months passed. The dragon, I learned his name was Carlos through mental communication, turned out to be a harmless orphan. No mother, no guidance, surviving alone in the forest. His mind was surprisingly simple and innocent, almost childlike. The heat wave he'd caused wasn't intentional, just a young dragon who couldn't control his fire energy leaking out. Now that he was trying to contain it, the temperature dropped to bearable levels. His behavior became absurd. He started landing near the Academy construction site just to watch workers lay bricks and raise beams. He'd poke walls with one claw to test their sturdiness, then sit there for hours making thoughtful rumbling sounds. People went from terrified to annoyed to completely unbothered. A rank 3 dragon who liked watching construction. I saw a potential workhorse and bodyguard. The longevity pill was slowly working. My silver hair was growing black at the roots. My energy was increasing, and magic flowed more smoothly. I also noticed something unexpected. The ambient magic across the entire territory was gradually rising, even outside the gathering array's range. A rank 1 mage could now meditate anywhere in Maple Ridge. The cause was unclear, but the implications for future development were enormous. Calvin's Knight Corps brought back over 500 wild horses from the forests, many with traces of magical beast bloodlines. A large horse ranch was being planned. During those forest expeditions, a young scout named Dix discovered a limestone deposit, which meant I could finally make cement. I built simple crushing, grinding, and kiln equipment from iron and copper, then after some trial and error, produced the first batch of Maple Ridge cement. Roads, buildings, the horse ranch, everything could now be built stronger and faster. Livestock farming started too. Pigs, sheep, chickens, ducks brought in by merchants. The annual monster raids simply didn't happen this year. Calvin's knights had cleared the forest edges so thoroughly that only strays wandered close, becoming easy practice and magic core sources. I also learned 2 new spells: Falling Petals, a rank 2 wood element attack that fires razor-sharp green petals capable of shredding a heavy wooden target, and Petal Guard, a rank 3 defense spell that creates a beautiful but incredibly tough barrier of glowing white petals that also slowly heals those inside. Standing on the academy rooftop, I tested both spells. Carlos the dragon watched the petal barrier shimmer around me, then stared at the obliterated target dummy. His eyes lit up like a child seeing a magic trick. He made a low, almost pleading rumble. I sent him a clear mental message. "Want to learn? Room and board included. You work to pay tuition." Teaching Carlos magic was a disaster. The dragon had 0 talent for spellcasting, couldn't produce even a stable flicker of controlled fire energy despite endless attempts. His power was pure raw instinct, not something he could shape into spells. I regretted my room and board, work for tuition, offer almost immediately. So I pivoted. I pointed him toward the construction site instead. His eyes lit up. Within minutes, he was happily hauling stone blocks that would take 4 men to lift, watching cement mixers with fascination, and flattening ground with his massive claws. Free superpowered construction worker with built-in heating. Not what I planned, but useful. The real prize arrived from Sunset Mountain. All 1,375 magic plants had matured. Every element, perfect quality. I had them harvested and brought to the castle immediately. This batch could produce over 6,000 5-element pills. My plan: 600 pills to train 600 new knights. The rest sold to traveling merchants at 10 to 30 gold coins each. First real cash crop for Maple Ridge. I fired up the blue essence furnace and went into a 2-month crafting marathon. Pills poured out batch after batch: gold, wood, water, fire, earth, filling jade bottles by the hundreds. Every 100 batches, I'd pause and hand a load to Calvin for the next round of night training. Calvin was simultaneously waging war on wild horses. Over 2 months, his knights captured 800 more from the forests, bringing the total to over 1,300. The horse ranch became a battlefield, knights getting thrown, kicked, and covered in mud, then climbing right back on. Calvin personally wrestled the most violent stallions into submission. These horses, once tamed, would become the foundation of a real cavalry. Cement production continued nonstop. The horse ranch was going up fast using cement foundations and brick walls, with Carlos occasionally lending his strength as a crane. My body kept changing from the longevity pill. Black hair had spread to 1/3 of my formerly silver locks. More concerning, my ears were slowly becoming pointed. Elf features emerging. I checked in the mirror, frowned, and tucked hair over my ears. If needed, the robe's hood would cover everything. A small price for centuries of life. I went back to the furnace. Outside, Carlos was happily grunting while hauling boulders, and the horse ranch echoed with knights cursing and stallions screaming. Maple Ridge was loud, busy, and growing fast. 2 months of nonstop pill-making produced over 6,000 5-element pills. I allocated enough to train 600 new knights, leaving 506 for sale. At Sunset Mountain, I'd already replanted with nearly 2,800 new seedlings under an upgraded double array system, securing future supply. My appearance kept changing. 2/3 of my hair had turned black, and my ears were clearly becoming pointed, elvish. I kept them hidden under my hair or hood. The trade-off for centuries of extra life was acceptable. When the merchant Charlie returned to Maple Ridge, I let Violet handle negotiations. She presented the pills as special compact potions, same rank 1 effects, but more convenient than traditional bottled medicine. After some back and forth, They settled on 18 gold coins per pill, 50 pills for the first batch. 900 gold coins went into the treasury. Not a fortune, but a start. Charlie decided to stick around. He saw Maple Ridge's growth, learned I was a rank 3 mage and alchemist from the Harris family, and recognized the opportunity. Few merchants came this far yet. Perfect time to lock in an exclusive trading relationship. Meanwhile, I started mass-producing standard knight equipment. 1,000 sets of white jade-infused iron armor, swords, spears, and bows, all with rank 1 enchantments. Pure assembly line work. Forge, mold, etch runes, repeat. I joked to myself that I'd gone from being a wage slave in my past life to being a noble lord who was still basically working a factory shift. At least the food had improved. The castle kitchen was now serving stir-fried vegetables, meat dishes, and white rice, all from my guidance based on half-remembered Chinese cooking. After months of bread and stew, eating with chopsticks I'd introduced felt like a small victory. Each night I'd soak in a hot bath, then meditate, slowly absorbing the longevity pill's life essence. My senses were sharpening, my cells optimizing. The elf-like changes deepened, ears more translucent, magic perception keener. One detail nagged at me, though. In Charlie's camp that night, among his crew, a young apprentice kept glancing toward the castle with eyes too sharp and cold for his age. Charlie didn't notice, but someone in that caravan was watching us with more than merchant curiosity. While I was working in the forge, Violet came in with a letter, and a look I'd never seen from her before. She studied my face carefully, taking in the changes. Fully black hair, eyes shifting toward purple, sharpening features. Then she called me, young master, a name she hadn't used since I was a child. It was her way of checking if I was still me. The letter was from my father, Count Harris. Polite formalities, empty small talk, then the real point. Return to Harris Castle before next spring. Family business and something about the Empire's northern border situation. Details would come in person. Spring was still 4 or 5 months away. Plenty of time. I told Violet I'd leave in January, when the Knight Corps would be strong enough to serve as escort. I also wanted to visit Alfred, my half-brother stuck in his own miserable territory. Without my deduction cheat, I'd probably be worse off than him. Before leaving, the castle needed renovation. I couldn't have family representatives see it looking like a ruin. I'd draw up plans for a proper rebuild, Eastern architectural style mixed with magical fortification. Violet's concern about my appearance was obvious. I reassured her, a risky magical experiment, but everything was under control. I was still myself. I didn't explain the elf body pill. That secret was too dangerous to share. The vague answer calmed her worst fear that I'd been replaced by something inhuman. I took the moment to thank her properly. Without Violet, Maple Ridge would be nothing. I made the plans and opened the doors, but she turned every decision into reality. Managing serfs, handling merchants, coordinating supplies, keeping everything running. She was the true foundation. By November, my transformation was nearly complete. Hair fully black, eyes deep purple with almost supernatural perception, ears clearly elvish. The pill had avoided the mutation risks from the original recipe. All changes were beneficial. Stronger life force, sharper magical senses, enhanced spiritual power. Late at night, I sat in the study drafting the new castle blueprints. Defense arrays built into the structure, comfortable living quarters, a central magic tower. Outside, knights wrestled wild horses at the ranch, and Carlos the dragon was happily pounding foundations with his claws. The road home was set. January departure, Harris Castle by spring. But I'd be returning as something very different from the mediocre bastard son they'd sent away. January arrived. 660 knights stood on the frozen training ground. In matching white jade armor, radiating 5 different elemental auras that made the dead grass around them freeze, burn, grow, crack, or harden, depending on which element passed over it. The Maple Leaf Knight Corps was real. Their banner, a simple gold maple leaf on deep red, flew in the winter wind. From traveling merchants, I'd learned something critical. The magic concentration increase wasn't just happening in Maple Ridge. It was everywhere, across the entire continent. A magic tide. That explained my father's urgent summons. Rising magic meant shifting power, resource competition, and reshuffled alliances. The harassed family wanted all pieces on the board. My transformation was essentially complete. Pure black hair, deep purple eyes with almost supernatural perception, refined features, pointed ears hidden under my hood. The longevity pill had worked perfectly with no harmful mutations. At my waist hung the miniaturized blue cloud sword. On my back, the shrunken cloud sea bow, both capable of expanding into full weapons instantly. I selected 200 of the strongest knights plus Calvin's 10 veterans as my escort. The rest stayed behind with Violet, Carlos the dragon, and the defense array to protect the territory. Saying goodbye to Violet was hard. She adjusted my hood to make sure my ears were covered, hands trembling slightly. She'd been my caretaker since birth, more mother than servant. I told her to follow the plan: castle renovation, magic plant cultivation, pill sales. She'd keep everything running perfectly as always. The horn sounded. 200 riders surged forward on armored forest horses, white jade gleaming, the red maple banner cutting through the winter air. Villagers and farmers lined the road in silence, then broke into cheers as we passed. The journey east would take over a month. The lightning runes on the armor kept both riders and horses fresh at high speed. Every settlement we passed through scattered at the sight of us. Nobody challenged a force like this. Days in, we passed a small town where Charlie's merchant caravan was resting. He stared at us in awe. But that quiet young apprentice of his. When my gaze swept across the caravan, I noticed his body freeze for just a split second, like something inside him recoiled from being seen. That night at camp, I sat by the fire turning the miniaturized blue cloud sword in my fingers, watching the flames. Ahead lay the harassed family, my father, and Alfred. I'd left as a forgettable bastard son. I was coming back as something else entirely. The month-long journey east was smooth. Bandits fled at the sight of us. Stray monsters became training practice for the knights. I spent most of the trip meditating in my enchanted carriage, continuing to absorb the longevity pill. Harris City hit me like a wall. Floating sky gardens, magic towers piercing the clouds, black stone walls covered in glowing runes, streets wide enough for 4 carriages. And this was considered a second-tier city. Maple Ridge looked like a dirt village by comparison. Our white jade armor caused a stir. Nobody had seen anything like it. Too elegant, too strange compared to the heavy black iron gear everyone here wore. But the moment people spotted the harassed family crest on our banners, all whispering stopped. In this city, that name meant absolute authority. The family castle was a black obsidian fortress built into a mountain, massive towers, magical defenses, a moat with metal spikes underwater. It made my renovated maple fort look like a garden shed. Inside, I met my father. Count Reynard sat behind a black stone desk looking exactly like what he was, a hard, tired man who'd held power too long. Iron gray hair, cold eyes, deep purple noble clothing with gold family emblems. His gaze locked onto my changes immediately. The black hair, the purple eyes half hidden under my hood. The air froze. Then he seemed to relax slightly, apparently deciding I still looked human enough. His warning caught me off guard. He thought I'd been doing alchemical body modification, apparently a real problem among noble children in this world. Some literally replaced their limbs with mechanical parts, or worse. He was furious at the idea and threatened to lock me in the deepest dungeon if I'd gone down that path. I played along perfectly, lowered my eyes, acted appropriately nervous, and explained it was just side effects from experimental magic potions. Nothing permanent, nothing mechanical. He accepted that, grumbled, and sent me to rest in my old quarters. Walking through the cold obsidian corridors afterward, I almost laughed. My father had mistaken elf transformation for teenage rebellion. Compared to the alchemical body horror that apparently existed in this world, growing pointy ears was practically wholesome. But the humor faded quickly. Harris City's politics ran 100 times deeper than anything in Maple Ridge. This homecoming was just beginning. 3 quiet days in the family castle. Alicia was away studying at the Cathedral of Light. Then Alfred arrived with an impressive knight escort, clearly doing well in his own territory. At dinner he'd matured somewhat, but still gave me the cold shoulder. I didn't care. We both knew Alicia would inherit the family. We were just side pieces on the board. Late one night during meditation, I sensed someone outside my window. I fired ice arrows on reflex. Alfred's panicked voice stopped me mid-attack. He climbed in wearing full burglar gear and pitched me the most absurd proposal. Raid our father's treasury together, tonight. My brain screamed no. Then he mentioned what was inside, and one item hit me like lightning. A living branch from the ancient tree of life. That was the key ingredient I needed for an advanced longevity pill. Impossible to buy anywhere. I asked about consequences. Alfred shrugged. He'd reached rank 4 Holy Knight. Tough enough to survive any beating father would give. I was a squishy mage, but father wouldn't actually kill his own son. The logic was stupid but bulletproof. I grabbed my black stealth clothes and followed him. His sneaking was terrible, practically walking normally through the corridors. I had to physically drag him into hiding spots twice. But he had something unexpected, a holy light frequency that resonated with a hidden lock mechanism on the vault door. The massive enchanted gate opened silently. Inside was staggering. A starlit dome ceiling, rows of black stone shelves holding magic crystals, beast cores, enchanted weapons, rare herbs, construct remains. I went straight for the Tree of Life branch, a gnarled gray piece resting in glowing green liquid, radiating massive life energy. I sealed it in a prepared runed jade box. Alfred grabbed 2 barrels of Royal Reserve wine and 7 gold nuggets the size of fists. We got out clean. Back in my room, we toasted with stolen wine. Next morning, Father called us both in. He knew everything. The vault's monitoring system had recorded our energy signatures. He listed every stolen item with prices, completely calm. Alfred's wine and gold, 15,000 coins. My tree branch, 5 million on the black market. Punishment, Alfred owed double, 30,000 gold plus solitary confinement, copying a knight's manual 1,000 times. I owed double, 10 million gold coins, plus I had to complete an unspecified task for the family before the debt was cleared. Alfred nearly collapsed. I felt sick too, until a realization hit me on the way out. Father had said, I won't ask your reasons about the branch. He knew exactly what I wanted it for. The vault's real defenses could stop rank 5 fighters. No way Alfred's. He worked without permission. This entire heist was staged. Father let it happen. The debt and task weren't punishment. They were an investment, binding me to the family with obligations while giving me exactly what I needed. I looked at Alfred miserably heading to his confinement, then back at Father's closed door. The old man was far sharper than either of us had given him credit for. The Tree of Life branch changed everything. I placed it near the longevity pill in my core, and the two resonated. The ancient life energy accelerated the pill's absorption dramatically. My transformation deepened faster than ever. Alfred escaped his punishment within 2 days, naturally. The shared heist actually broke the ice between us. He started dragging me into his social circle, which turned out to be a nightmare. Noble sons gathering in luxury dens surrounded by barely dressed beast women of every kind. Magical stimulants flowing freely. Activities so depraved they made my dark elf alchemy look saintly. I went once, kept my hood down, refused everything, and never returned. My elf-changed body actually recoiled from that environment. More importantly, I couldn't risk exposure. In March, Father dropped the real bombshell at dinner. The Southern Nations Alliance had decided to support the Northern Frost Kingdom in a massive counterattack against the Orc Empire. With the magic tide approaching, this was humanity's chance to crush the Orc threat and claim territory before the world's power balance shifted. Alicia had already been deployed to the Northern Front under orders from the Cathedral of Light, leading a family elite force. That explained her absence for months. Now Alfred and I were ordered to follow with our Knight Corps, not to fight on the front lines, but to trail behind the main forces, mop up scattered Orc units, and secure rear positions. Easy military merit. Father's final words were dead serious. Survival is priority 1. The next morning, 2 armies marched out of Harris City. Alfred's Rock Knights, 300 heavy cavalry in dark iron armor, himself in golden Holy Knight plates swinging a massive warhammer. My Maple Leaf Knights, 200 in white jade armor, silent, disciplined, 5-element auras radiating outward, red maple banner snapping in the wind. Two completely different styles, heading into the same storm. On the road north, Alfred rode up beside me and started teasing about my refusal to touch any of the women at his parties. I told him one more word and he'd sleep in the snow. He laughed and backed off. Behind us on the castle ramparts, Father watched both armies disappear into the blizzard. He muttered to himself about my appearance changes, my antisocial habits, and, apparently his real worry, whether I'd ever manage to get married. The feared Count harassed, fretting about his awkward son's love life. If I'd heard it, I might have actually laughed. The march north would take over a year, crossing 3 kingdoms and 2 duchies to reach the Frost Kingdom's ice plains. I bought a luxury enchanted carriage immediately. A mage's body wasn't built for a year of rough riding. Our convoy grew constantly. Minor nobles heading north to grab war merit attached themselves to us. Alfred, the natural socializer, gathered intelligence effortlessly. Most were second sons hunting promotions, connections, or just adventure. As the Harris family heirs, we were the biggest names in the group. That brought unwanted attention. My white jade knights looked like nothing anyone had seen before, and the mysterious hooded lord inside the fancy carriage attracted a swarm of noble daughters. Carriages inched closer, perfumed letters arrived, pretty maids knocked on my door. I shut everything down. Curtains sealed, Calvin handling all visitors with his stone face and cold refusals. The rejected women instantly redirected to Alfred, who welcomed them with open arms. His camp became a nightly party, music, wine, and a rotating cast of noble ladies. His oversized carriage was basically a mobile pleasure palace. I could sense it all through spiritual perception, and it was infuriating. I was grinding through pill absorption and battle formation research like a monk while he lived like a king. I confronted him about the risks, father finding out, ruined reputations, unwanted children. He laughed it off. Turns out the idiot was actually clever about one thing. He used holy light to purify himself before every encounter, ensuring no pregnancies. Ruthless and effective. I gave up trying to control him. Alone in my carriage, I checked the mirror. The transformation had made me genuinely handsome. Flawless porcelain skin, refined features, traces of my late mother's face, but elevated by the elf bloodline. The purple eyes, the black silk hair. None of it mattered to me. In this world, power was everything, not looks. I pulled the hood back down and returned to meditation. The Tree of Life branch was accelerating the pill's work significantly. Each session brought clearer breakthroughs in life force and magical refinement. War was coming, and only strength would matter when we reached those frozen battlefields. 2 months into the year-long march, the convoy had swelled with minor nobles, all heading north for war merit. Then Princess Evelyn of the Storm Duchy joined with hundreds of elite royal knights and court mages. Her presence instantly killed Alfred's nightly parties. Even he knew when to act like a proper harassed heir. When a powerful count hosted a grand welcome banquet, I skipped it entirely. My reasoning was simple. These people were too far from Maple Ridge to matter. My average, public reputation made me invisible to real talents. I had zero interest in marriage alliances, and exposing my changed appearance at a crowded noble event was too risky. Alfred went and shined. His rank for Holy Knight status and family name made him a star. Good for him. His path needed networking, mine didn't. I spent every hour in my carriage working. First breakthrough, the small 5-element battle formation. 10 knights arranged by elemental type, their battle energies cycling through a mutual support loop. Gold attacks, wood heals, water deflects, fire amplifies damage, earth anchors defense. 10 rank 1 knights using this formation could match a rank 2 knight. A massive upgrade for the entire corps. Second, Meteor Strike, a rank 3 spell. Summons a burning meteorite from above to devastate a wide area. My big battlefield weapon. Third, Sword Control Technique. I upgraded Blue Cloud's internal arrays for instant acceleration and razor-sharp maneuverability. Not for combat, purely for emergency escape at speeds beyond any wind spell. My ultimate survival card. The longevity pill absorption continued alongside the tree of life resonance. After nearly a year of work, I'd processed roughly 1/10 of the total energy. Real gains in power, magic purity, and mental sharpness. But something interesting, my external transformation had stopped. Hair, eyes, skin, ears, all frozen at their current state. The incoming life energy was no longer changing my surface appearance. Instead, it was sinking deeper into bones, cells, meridians, maybe the soul itself. Some fundamental internal rebuild was happening beneath the surface, accumulating toward a threshold I couldn't yet see. That didn't worry me. If anything, it felt like pressure building before an eruption. When the remaining 90% finally absorbed, the result would be far beyond cosmetic changes. The road north stretched endlessly ahead. War was still distant, but inside this quiet carriage, every hour sharpened another edge. After a full year of marching, we finally reached Iron Crown City, the Frost Kingdom's frontline fortress against the Orc Empire. The cold was brutal. Southern soldiers lost a third of their fighting power just from the freeze. My fire element knights suffered badly too, their inner heat constantly suppressed. Water element knights thrived though. I survived wrapped in so many layers I looked like a ball, maintaining a thin magic warmth barrier that barely held. The city was enormous, dark stone walls bristling with metal spikes, surrounded by an ocean of military camps stretching to the horizon. Tens of thousands of soldiers from dozens of nations, all crammed together in a mess of tents, flags, noise, and the stink of war preparation. We set up camp miles from the walls. There was simply no closer space left. We went into the city to find Alicia at the Church of Light compound. The contrast was staggering. Outside, chaos, filth, anxiety. Inside the church walls, silence, clean stone paths, holy statues under thin snow, air that smelled of warm sunlight. Even the door guards were rank 3 holy knights, the kind of power that commands armies in normal kingdoms, here just standing at a gate. Calvin straightened his back without thinking. In a world where real gods exist, divine authority dwarfs any crown. An elderly priest told us Alicia had left 2 days ago with a Crusader Knight order to Frost Breath Canyon for a mission. She'd return in 2 days. He gave us a clean, warm guest room with a magic fireplace. Alfred and I sat by the fire, thawing out. He was impressed by the church's power, and right to be. Whatever mission required Crusader Knights to deploy was no ordinary orc skirmish. Alicia was in something serious. I stood at the stained glass window looking north. The pill in my core was still slowly dissolving, resonating faintly with the holy energy in this place. The year-long journey through increasingly harsh conditions had actually accelerated the absorption. My magical sensitivity had sharpened dramatically. The world felt like it had dropped a veil. But the weight of what lay ahead pressed down harder than the cold. Frost Breath Canyon. Even the name cut like ice. And somewhere beyond it, an entire orc empire waited. 2 days later, Alicia returned. When we entered the meeting room, she stood by the window in a white priest's robe embroidered with gold holy symbols, silver hair, golden eyes, radiating calm authority. For years had turned the gentle older sister I remembered into someone powerful and untouchable. She looked at Alfred first, approved of his growth into a proper rank for Holy Knight. Then her eyes landed on me, a tiny figure buried in oversized robes and a thick shawl, hood pulled so low I looked like a scared snowball next to Alfred's towering frame. Without asking, she walked over and reached for my hood. My heart nearly stopped. We were inside the Church of Light headquarters. Everything about me, the dark elf pill, the pointed ears, the purple eyes, screamed heresy in this place. But when I saw her warm golden eyes and Alfred's loyal idiot face beside her, something in me let go. These were the only 2 people from my old life who'd ever shown me warmth. The hood came off. Silence. Alicia's eyes went wide. Black silk hair spilling down, flawless porcelain skin, purple eyes, and when she brushed my hair behind my ear, she felt the pointed tip. An electric jolt shot through me, and I nearly buckled. My face went red. She held my face in her hands and studied me for a long time. Shock, confusion, concern. all cycling through those golden eyes. Alfred's jaw had been hanging open the entire time. His conclusion? I'd botched another potion experiment, just like 4 years ago when I gave him that hallucination-inducing mess. He decided I simply had no talent for alchemy and had accidentally made myself look like this. He was so proud of his brilliant deduction that he started comparing our heights to prove he was the real big brother now. I almost laughed. Let him think whatever he wanted. Alicia silenced Alfred with one look, then ordered him, on his knight's honor, to never tell anyone about my appearance. Not father, not his knights, nobody. He swore immediately. She carefully pulled my hood back up, her fingers lingering on my cheek with a mix of worry and something almost affectionate. I think some part of her was secretly pleased to finally have a cute little brother, instead of just Alfred. Then the old priest Gregory came in with hot tea. His gaze passed over me casually, too casually. For one instant, I felt something warm and penetrating scan right through my hood, focusing on my ears. A flicker of golden symbols in his eyes, gone before I could be sure. He said nothing, served the tea, and left. Alicia noticed it too. Gregory had detected something about me, but he'd chosen not to act. That was both reassuring and deeply unsettling. A high-ranking church official knew my secret, and for now, was keeping quiet about it. We sat drinking warm fruit tea in the silence of the church guest room. Outside, the iron sky pressed down on the frozen city. Alicia's fingers were cold around her cup despite the heat. Between my impossible secret, Gregory's knowing glance, and whatever horrors waited at Frostbreath Canyon, the weight in that room was heavier than any blizzard. Alicia confirmed what I feared. The old priest Gregory was rank 5 and had absolutely detected the transformed dark energy traces on me. But she calmed me down. If he'd wanted to act, he would have done it immediately. His silence meant he was deferring to Alicia's judgment. And Alicia had a powerful card. Her best friend was Isabella, the current holy maiden of the Church of Light. With that connection, as long as I didn't openly threaten the church, my protection was virtually guaranteed. She told me about a banquet the Holy Maiden would host in 7 days, a gathering of young talents from across the continent. She'd bring me and Alfred, a chance to show my face safely under her shield. Back at camp, I thought about my father's calculations. Reynard wasn't stupid. He'd surely noticed my changes before we left. Yet he sent me to this war anyway, where church officials and sharp-eyed nobles would be everywhere. That meant either he judged the risk acceptable, or he was confident the Harris family name could handle any fallout. Either way, it meant I could stop being quite so paranoid. My real focus shifted to opportunity. The Allied nations had set up a military merit exchange system, and 2 items near the top caught my eye: Moonstone and Sunstone, rank 4 magic gems that could capture and store lunar and solar energy. Most mages saw them as ritual components. I saw something bigger. Using fragments of cultivation novel concepts from my past life, specifically the celestial star formation idea, I'd been sketching a simplified magical version during the journey. A formation that could draw stellar, lunar, and solar energy, convert it into usable magic power, and feed it into the land. If Moonstone and Sunstone became the core nodes, combined with this world's elemental array rules, I might build a permanent energy conversion system far more powerful than any gathering array. For Maple Ridge, that would be transformative, an endless magic source independent of the territory's natural limits. But the exchange cost for those rank 4 gems was enormous. Earning enough merit meant proving real value on the battlefield. At least I had Alfred as my heavy hitter, Meteor Strike as my area weapon, and ice magic that would thrive in this frozen environment. Fire spells were nearly useless here. The cold suppressed them brutally. Good thing I had alternatives. I sat in my tent studying array drafts and testing ice versus fire at my fingertips. The ice crystallized instantly, sharp and eager. The fire struggled and flickered, suffocated by the frozen air. This battlefield would favor certain elements heavily. I need to plan accordingly. 7 days passed. Alicia came to collect us for the Holy Maiden's banquet. She took one look at Alfred in his battle armor, and me wrapped like a snowball, and dragged us both back to her quarters for a makeover. Alfred got a fitted, deep blue formal suit with silver star embroidery. Without the heavy armor, He actually looked impressive, tall, muscular, golden hair slicked back, every bit the young war hero. For me, Alicia did something I didn't expect. She cast a rank 4 divine spell, Light's Mimicry, that reshaped the perception of my pointed ears into normal human ones. Not a simple illusion, but a deep sensory override that would fool even strong observers. She did it effortlessly, which reminded me she was far more powerful than her gentle manner suggested. Anyone trusted to run purification missions with Crusader Knights in dangerous territory wasn't just a healer. She pinned my black hair back with silver clips, exposing my full face for the first time in months. The result, in her eyes, was apparently a 9 out of 10. She only docked a point because she couldn't make me look cuter. She seemed genuinely delighted to finally have an adorable little brother after years of just Alfred. She kept pinching my cheeks, which was embarrassing but impossible to stop given that she outclassed me in every possible way. I considered protesting the whole presentation but quickly calculated the odds. A sister who casually threw rank 4 transformation spells, backed by Alfred who'd side with her unconditionally. I kept my mouth shut. We arrived at the Holy Radiance Hall, a massive white marble cathedral serving as the Holy Maiden's temporary palace. The banquet hall was warm, brilliant with crystal chandeliers, filled with the scent of expensive incense and flowers. A sharp contrast to the frozen misery outside. Guests in formal were mingled quietly, harp music floating through the air. We'd arrived early. Alicia picked a quiet corner near a stained glass window. Alfred immediately attacked the dessert table. I sat beside Alicia and closed my eyes, extending my enhanced senses across the room. Most guests had moderate power signatures, but a few presences ran terrifyingly deep, heavy, ancient, like sleeping predators. This gathering had serious players in attendance. Alicia reached over and gently poked my face. "Stop looking so tense." I opened my eyes to her teasing golden gaze. Even at a warfront banquet surrounded by continental powers, my biggest immediate threat was still my own sister's affection. The banquet filled up fast, saints and saintesses from every major church on the continent. Alicia quietly identified them for me. Nature's Saintess Lilith with green curls, the Elf Church's Saint Elrin, Harvest Saint Barton, and many more. The standouts were Light Church's Saint Ian, the Holy Maiden's brother, nearly rank 5, plus Water Saint Casey and Fire Saint Lucius, who'd been rivals since childhood and were already glaring daggers at each other across the room. Holy Maiden Isabella herself appeared in a pale blue gown, gave a brief, powerful speech about unity against the orcs, then let the party flow. She was elegant, composed, and clearly in complete control. Casey and Lucius immediately started arguing, apparently both competing for Alicia's attention. The other saints gathered around to watch and egg them on, loving every second. Then Alicia did the worst thing imaginable. She grabbed me from behind Alfred's back and presented me to her circle of saintess friends like a prized doll. "This is my little brother Len." What followed was a nightmare. Lilith squealed, so cute, and grabbed my cheek. Love goddess Saintess Cecilia started playing with my hair. Dawn Saintess poked my nose. Even the dark, mysterious night Saintess touched my chin. Alicia not only allowed it, but encouraged everyone. I was pinned by multiple powerful auras, completely unable to move, while half a dozen women took turns squeezing my face. Casey and Lucius both rushed over trying to impress Alicia through me, immediately started fighting again, and nearly set off an elemental storm in the banquet hall. Isabella just sipped her wine and told the guards to let them go as long as they paid for damages. Then she joined the face-pinching squad herself. I gave up resisting. My soul left my body. I stood there like a human toy while saintesses laughed. Water and fire saints threw spells at each other in the background. Alfred stuffed his face with pastries without a care in the world, and harp music played on as if mocking my suffering. The moment one saintess got distracted by a stray fireball, I slipped free and ran for the exit at maximum speed. Alicia called after me. I didn't look back. I burst out into the freezing night air, gasping with relief, face still burning from being squeezed into every shape imaginable. Never again. I'd rather fight orcs than attend another banquet. The morning after the banquet, Alfred burst into my tent with a full report. The Water and Fire Saints had escalated their fight until they accidentally knocked over Saint Ian himself, and Gregory had to intervene. More importantly, he carried a message from Alicia and Isabella. The main forces, top church knights, and elite noble armies, had already marched north to engage the Orc main army. Our job was to wait. Once they shattered and scattered the Orc formations, smaller units would flee in every direction. That's when we'd move in to mop up and collect military merit through quick skirmishes. This was exactly the scenario I needed. Small, fast encounters meant I needed spells for rapid kills and efficient area clearing, not slow siege weapons. I assessed my current arsenal. Meteor Strike was too slow and imprecise for mobile targets. Blizzard worked great in the north, but lacked killing power against tough Orc warriors who could charge through ice storms. I needed something fast, devastating, and effective against Orcs specifically. The answer was lightning. Thunder magic is violent, quick, and penetrating. It breaks through most elemental shields easily. Critically, it deals amplified damage against dark corrupted beings, and Orcs, with their blood rage, chaos gods, and tainted bloodlines, were particularly vulnerable to it. I chose Thundercloud, a rank 3 lightning. Spell with 3 modes. Area Bombardment with Lightning Rain for clearing groups, a concentrated Thunder Spear for single target kills with near rank 4 power, and a sustained electric field for area denial and paralysis. Perfect versatility for chaotic, scattered combat. I went into total seclusion. Calvin handled the Night Corps. Alfred kept his team drilling and watching the northern horizon, where explosions and elemental flashes lit up the sky daily as the main battle raged. For 6 weeks I did nothing but deduction. My tent started crackling with stray electricity, sparks jumping from my hair, dust floating in charged air, a faint blue-white aura flickering around me. The guards outside could feel the pressure through the tent walls and quietly widen their perimeter. After a month and a half, the core array was over 70% optimized. The remaining work focused on perfecting the Thunder Spear's compression technique and tuning the spell to resonate with the North's natural atmospheric charge, reducing magic cost and extending duration. Every detail was being ground down to maximum efficiency for the battlefield that was rapidly approaching. By May, winter had finally broken. My fire element knights recovered their full strength, and the entire corps was eager to fight. The magic tide had thickened the ambient magic dramatically. Breathing felt like drinking power. That night, alone in my tent, the longevity pill finally shattered. The last of the dark elf's life essence exploded through my body. Not pain at first, but total paralysis. Every cell was being rebuilt simultaneously. Bones condensed, muscles restructured, blood surged with impossible vitality. Alicia's ear disguise spell dissolved instantly under the dark elf energy. Then, without warning, agony hit like a lightning bolt and I blacked out. When I woke on the cold ground, the first thing I felt was the change in my lifespan. 500 or 600 years added, maybe more. The stream of my life had become a river with no visible end. Worth everything. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Flawless ivory skin that seemed to glow, perfect proportions, purple eyes like captured galaxies, features so refined they crossed into something inhuman. The baby fat on my cheeks somehow survived, adding an unsettling innocence to the otherworldly beauty. I looked like a creature born from moonlight and shadow. I pulled the hood down immediately. A message arrived from Saintess Lilith, scattered orc remnants near Ice Rift Valley, mostly rank 3 wolf riders and goblin javelin throwers with a few rank 4 leaders. Disorganized, low morale. Perfect targets. She suggested gathering nearby small noble forces as expendable support. I sent Alfred out immediately to recruit under the Harris family banner. Within a day, he'd assembled 1,500 troops from 7 or 8 minor nobles, a ragtag mix of poorly equipped infantry and light cavalry. Combined with my 200 elite Maple Knights and Alfred's 300 Rock Knights, we had a functional army. The small nobles got their chance at glory. I got human shields and military merit. We marched 700 miles northwest to Ice Rift Valley. The terrain worsened steadily, muddy thawed ground, dense hills, fallen trees blocking paths. The conscript soldiers struggled and complained. Alfred played troubleshooter, clearing roads and pushing stragglers forward. I rode quietly in the middle, hood up, spending most of my mental energy on final thundercloud optimization. When we crested the last ridge, Ice Rift Valley spread before us, a massive black chasm splitting the earth, sheer 100-meter cliffs on both sides, howling wind pushing freezing fog through the depths. Somewhere down there, scattered orc war bands were hiding, waiting to be flushed out. The hunt was about to begin. I gave Calvin full command of tactics. His plan was textbook: small noble troops as bait and frontline pressure, Maple Knights holding key exits, Alfred's Gold Knights hidden near the target zone for the killing blow. We waited 4 days. On the 4th evening, orcs started flooding into Blackstone Plateau, roughly 2,000 by the final count. Mostly wolf riders and goblin javelin throwers, about 20 rank 3 berserkers, no confirmed rank 4. They were disorganized and settling in, thinking the plateau was safe. At dawn on the 6th day, I stood on a high cliff overlooking the entire valley. Then I unleashed everything. Meteor strike first. A fireball dozens of meters wide tore through the sky and slammed into the center of their camp. The explosion shook the earth, vaporized the core group instantly, and sent a shockwave of debris, fire, and body parts rippling outward. Before the dust settled, blizzard, ice and cutting wind flooded the crater and surrounding area, freezing survivors in place, shredding them with razor ice. Then thundercloud. A black storm cloud materialized above the blizzard zone and rain targeted lightning bolts down on every strong signature still moving. Rank 2 and 3 orcs trying to flee got struck one by one. Each flash ended a scream. 3 spells, seamless chain. Over 1,700 orcs dead in minutes. The remaining 200 or 300 survivors stumbled around the edges, burned, frozen, bleeding, utterly broken. That's when Alfred charged. Golden armor blazing, war cries splitting the air, his 300 knights crashed into the remnants like a wave hitting sand. The conscript army followed, screaming with battle fever, overwhelming everything in their path. It was a slaughter, not a battle. The cannon fodder troops barely took any casualties, a few unlucky ones caught by dying orcs lashing out. The entire orc force was wiped clean. Among the conscripts, there was apparently some farm boy who kept screaming profanity in shock at every spell I cast. I didn't notice at the time. I was too focused on maintaining the thundercloud and picking off stragglers. But I'd hear about him later. Military merit secured. First harvest complete. I stumbled back to camp completely drained from the triple spell bombardment. All I wanted was sleep. Instead, I found Saintess Lilith sitting in my tent like she owned the place. Then I saw what was on my table. A sunstone and a moonstone. The exact rank 4 treasures I'd been planning to grind months of military merit to earn. Just sitting there, glowing with solar and lunar energy. My brain short-circuited. Lilith used that moment to pull off my hood, revealing my full post-transformation face and elf ears. She wasn't surprised. She'd apparently suspected since the banquet that Alicia's disguise spell was hiding something. She proposed a deal. Let her play for a while, and both stones were mine. For rank 4 treasures that could power my star energy conversion array and transform Maple Ridge forever? I agreed instantly. Zero hesitation. What followed was over an hour of her exploring my elf ears with her fingers. The sensitivity was overwhelming. Each touch sent electric waves through my entire body. I couldn't control my reactions at all. My legs went weak, my face burned red, my mind went blank. I basically melted into a helpless mess while she experimented with every possible way to touch, pinch, and trace those ears. At the end, while I was completely defenseless and barely conscious, she kissed me. Quick, light, but unmistakable. We both froze. Her face went red too. She clearly hadn't planned it. The moment just overtook her. She pulled back, visibly panicked at the thought of Alicia finding out, probably imagining holy light punishment in her immediate future. I sat there with a burning face, scrambled brain, and 2 priceless rank 4 magic stones on my table. Worst trade negotiation of my life. Best outcome imaginable. I packed up and left. No regrets. The Sunstone and Moonstone were safely stored in my dimensional necklace, two rank 4 treasures that would become the foundation of Maple Ridge's future. Getting my ears touched for an hour? Cheapest price I'd ever pay for something this valuable. I told Alfred I was heading south immediately. He chose to stay. More orcs to fight, more glory to chase. Classic Alfred. I ordered Calvin to prepare for departure in 3 days. Light march, straight to Harris City. Lilith sent a fancy dinner invitation the next day. I burned it without a second thought. Another banquet meant another round of being passed around like a toy between saintesses. Absolutely not. On the third morning, 200 Maple Knights rode south under the red maple banner. I didn't look back once. The north was cold, dangerous, and full of women who wanted to squeeze my face. The warm south, Maple Ridge, and my star energy array blueprint were calling. What I didn't know, and only heard about much later, was that the banquet I skipped turned into a disaster. When the saintesses discovered I'd already left, their frustration exploded. Lilith was furious. The others were livid. Isabella snapped and attacked her own brother Ian with a holy light blast for failing to fetch me. That triggered a chain reaction. Every saint and saintess in the room suddenly remembered old grudges and started fighting each other. Ice spears, fire blasts, poison vines, shadow daggers, holy beams, even a mechanical puppet swinging a wrench. The elegant banquet hall became a full-scale elemental battlefield. Furniture shattered, curtains burned, crystal chandeliers swung wildly. Food went flying everywhere. Alfred survived by hiding under the dessert table with a pastry in each hand, watching the apocalypse through a gap in the tablecloth and muttering that fighting orcs was safer than this. Meanwhile, I was already miles away, riding south through spring air, hood up, thinking about nothing but arrays and architecture. 7 months of hard riding south. When Harris City finally appeared on the horizon, I was exhausted to the bone. I flew straight to my tower bedroom on a cloud spell, collapsed on the bed, and blacked out instantly. I woke to find Father standing over me in his bathrobe, arms crossed, staring down with a mix of scrutiny and something almost soft. He'd already verified my identity overnight with a family bloodline tracing spell. Same soul, same blood, just dramatically different packaging. Satisfied I hadn't been body snatched, he scooped me up like a kitten and carried me to breakfast, grumbling about me skipping meals. At the dining table, stepmother Isabella nearly gasped when she saw me. The full post-transformation look, messy black hair, sleepy purple eyes, bare feet, wrinkled pajamas. She melted completely. To her, I was the perfect child she'd always wanted. Quiet, beautiful, harmless looking. Unlike Alicia and Alfred, who'd been absolute terrors growing up, I'd always been the gentle one. Now I looked the part too. I played it perfectly. Soft voice, shy eyes, polite greeting. Isabella's maternal instincts went into overdrive, piling my plate with the best food, fussing over my health, asking about every hardship of the journey. When the moment was right, I made my move. Looking up with my most innocent expression, I told Mother I needed some materials for a large magical array at Maple Ridge. Then I listed every rare rank 4 mineral I needed for the star energy conversion formation: star pattern radiant stone, earth vein amethyst, high conductivity mithril ingots, pure amethyst powder. A shopping list worth a small fortune. Father's coffee cup froze mid-sip. He knew exactly what I was doing. But Isabella didn't even blink. She smiled, ruffled my hair, and said yes to everything. Just this? I thought you wanted the stars and moon. I'll have it all sent from the family vault and trade network. One condition: stay home a few extra days and let her spoil me properly. I agreed instantly. For that haul of materials, I'd stay a month. Father washed his wife's hand over a small mountain of wealth because their son batted his pretty eyes, silently swallowed whatever he wanted to say along with his bitter coffee, and said nothing. Mission accomplished. The gold mine had been struck. I spent several glorious days at the family castle doing absolutely nothing productive. Walking around in pajamas, barefoot, sipping honey drinks, being pampered by Mother Isabella, who treated me like a porcelain treasure. Father kept his stern face, but I caught him watching me with something suspiciously close to fondness. With 2 rank 5 parents in the house, pretending to hide my elf features was pointless, so I dropped the hood entirely. Nobody outside the family dared say a word. On my last day, Mother handed me a velvet pouch. Inside, 100 rank 3 magic crystals, pure condensed magic energy, the hard currency of this world. One rank 1 crystal was worth 100 gold coins, and rank 3 was exponentially more valuable. This was a fortune that could power a small magic tower. Combined with the rare minerals Father had already arranged from the family vault, star-patterned stone, earth vein amethyst, mithril ingots, arcane crystal powder, I was leaving with enough resources to build something extraordinary. The face-based economy was working perfectly. Every smile and soft word I'd invested during those days had returned thousandfold. Worth it. But leaving was necessary. Harris City belonged to Alicia's future. Maple Ridge was mine. The star energy array blueprint burned in my mind, demanding to become reality. I also needed to build a proper alchemy furnace, a real one this time, using the advanced energy patterns I developed while designing the star formation. The ride home stretched ahead. I slumped into the cushions of my luxury carriage, briefly mourning the loss of castle life, servants, hot meals, zero responsibilities. Then I felt the weight of the sunstone, moonstone, and 100 magic crystals in my storage necklace. I sat up, pulled out some mineral samples, and started working. Maple Ridge was waiting. There was a territory to transform. When Maple Ridge finally appeared on the horizon, 2 years of tension melted away. The changes were immediately visible. Mapletown had transformed from a rough collection of old buildings into an orderly settlement with blue brick streets, proper drainage systems, stone-lined riverbanks, and neatly rebuilt houses. The townspeople had even started copying the Eastern architectural style of the castle and academy, creating a unique local look. The castle itself was unrecognizable. New walls of blue brick and cement, tall and smooth. Expanded buildings with clean lines, mixing Eastern flourishes with the original Western fortress structure. Everything looked solid, prosperous, and well-maintained. Violet and the guards were waiting at the gate. When I stepped out of the carriage, no hood, full elf features visible, Violet froze. The guards gasped. I took her hand and simply said, "I'm home." She gripped back, eyes wet, and managed, "Welcome back." Inside, the castle had been completely renovated. Polished stone floors, bright windows with real glass, warm-colored walls, cement decorative details. Clean, functional, beautiful. Violet's report was extraordinary. 3 full harvests of magic plants from Sunset Mountain, all properly preserved in the underground vault. The main cement highway connecting the territory was finished, plus 70% of village roads. Copper and iron mines had produced mountains of refined metal. And the critical news, both the jade mine and sea blue crystal mine had been completely exhausted. Every last stone extracted and cataloged in the deepest vault. 2 years of steady work by Violet and the territory's people had built exactly the foundation I needed. Magic plants for pills, minerals for crafting, jade and crystal reserves for arrays, roads for logistics, and a castle strong enough to house the star energy formation. I sent everyone away, collapsed into my bed overlooking Maple Lake, and felt the weight of everything I'd brought home. Sunstone, moonstone, 100 rank 3 magic crystals, and a head full of formation blueprints. The materials were gathered. The territory was ready. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. First morning back. No breakfast, straight to the alchemy room. My night corps had over 1,000 fighters, and most were still painfully weak. Pills were the fastest solution. The blue essence furnace sat waiting. I cleaned it with a spell, loaded it up, and went to work. 5 types of elemental pills: gold, wood, water, fire, earth, using the magic plants harvested during my 2-year absence. Same proven recipes, same 5-element cycling method. My control had improved so much that the entire batch came out perfect. 500 pills total, 100 of each element, 100% success rate. Done in a single morning session. I called Calvin in after lunch and handed over the lot. 1 pill per night per week, matched to their elemental breathing technique. Strict rationing. He took the order and left quickly. I wasn't in the mood for conversation. After that, I retreated to the library. 3 walls of bookshelves reaching the ceiling, overlooking Maple Lake through massive windows. I grabbed a thick tome on ancient elemental rune variations and started reading. No specific goal, just feeding my deduction ability with raw knowledge, letting it absorb and catalog everything automatically. Every page strengthened the foundation for future breakthroughs. The morning was pill factory work. The afternoon was quiet study. This was my life again, the grind of building, creating, and preparing. No pampered castle living, no mother spoiling me with treats. Just a territory that needed its lord to keep pushing forward. Back to being a workhorse. But at least this time, the workhorse had rank 4 treasures in his pocket and a star formation waiting to be born. My days settled into a rhythm. Mornings in the alchemy room mass-producing pills for the night core, afternoons in the library absorbing knowledge to feed my deduction ability. Once I had built up enough pill reserves for a month, I shifted focus to the real goal, the star formation's core array disk. Problem: my old rank 2 purple crystal furnace couldn't handle rank 4 array work. It would explode. I needed a rank 3 refining furnace first. 7 nights of deduction produced the complete blueprint. The key material was sea blue essence crystal, rank 3 or from the deepest veins of our now exhausted crystal mine. Incredibly rare and powerful. I flew out to check on Carlos the Dragon before starting. He was happily working construction on a road project, moving giant cement slabs with his claws and bossing around work crews with his tail. 2 years hadn't changed him, still obsessed with building things, still endearingly stupid about it. At least he hadn't caused any disasters. Back in the workshop, I fired up the old purple crystal furnace one last time to purify the essence crystal into liquid form. Then came the real work, shaping and inscribing the new furnace entirely by hand using spiritual energy. I suspended the molten blue crystal in midair and began carving arrays directly into the liquid, core energy-gathering runes, magic conductivity circuits, temperature stabilization patterns, spatial expansion foundations, structural reinforcement arrays, and mental link nodes. Dozens of golden rune patterns sinking into the glowing blue mass, each one requiring perfect placement. One mistake would collapse everything. Hours of maximum intensity concentration. The liquid slowly took shape. 3 sturdy feet, a round belly with natural wave-like textures, a domed lid crowned with a star pattern radiant stone, and dragonhorn handles on each side. When every rune was in place, I slammed all my remaining magic and mental force into the final hardening. A deep, resonant hum filled the room. Blue light blazed. Golden rune lines raced across the surface like living veins, then sank inward and vanished. The furnace solidified into gleaming deep blue crystal. The ocean furnace, rank 3 refining furnace. Complete. I slumped against the wall, drained but triumphant. With this furnace, I could finally craft the star formation's core array disk. Maple Ridge's transformation was one step closer. After recovering overnight through meditation, I went straight to work on the star formation. The design was finalized, 1 main array disk plus 359 secondary disks. The main disk would be forged from the sunstone and moonstone fused together, handling the critical job of drawing in solar and lunar energy. The secondary disks, made from Father's rank for mineral donations, would convert that raw celestial energy into usable magic power. Star energy was off the table for now. My current level couldn't handle it without everything exploding. Crafting the main disk was the hardest part. I fed both stones into the ocean furnace simultaneously. They fought violently, solar heat and lunar cold clashing inside the chamber, screaming, shaking the entire furnace. I held on with maximum spiritual force for half a day, carefully guiding the 2 opposing energies to grind against each other until they found balance and merged into a swirling gold-silver liquid. Then I carved the core rune arrays directly into the molten material, celestial energy attraction, power routing, attribute harmonization, spatial anchoring, and mental control link. When the last rune locked in, the liquid collapsed inward and solidified into a palm-sized disc shaped like a yin-yang symbol, gold and silver perfectly intertwined. The sun-moon wheel, main array disk of the star formation. Done. The remaining 359 secondary discs were much simpler by comparison. Same process, but with standardized energy conversion runes. Repetitive work, lower difficulty. I set a pace of 10 per day. My routine became mechanical. Wake, float barefoot to the workshop on a cloud spell, fire up the furnace, purify minerals, shape discs, carve runes, seal in jade boxes. When mental energy ran low, float back to the bedroom. Meditate until recovered, float back, repeat. No shoes, no walking, no wasted motion. Pure efficiency. 1 month later, all 359 secondary discs sat stacked in jade boxes alongside the Sun-Moon core. Every piece of the star formation was ready for assembly. Maple Ridge was about to get its new heart. With all 360 discs crafted, I spent 3 sleepless days pumping magic into every single one through the main disc's spiritual network, lighting them up like stars on a map. Calvin's knights then buried them across the territory at precise coordinates. The main sun-moon will deep under the castle, the rest fanning out through Maple Town and beyond. Activation day. I floated to the highest tower, held the sun-moon wheel in my hands, and sent the ignition pulse. Secondary discs started waking up one by one, then faster and faster in a chain reaction. Around me, sunlight began bending, literally flowing toward the castle like water finding a drain. The sky over Maple Ridge started dimming as the formation sucked in solar energy from hundreds of miles around. When the last disc activated, the world went completely dark for 2 heartbeats. Then a pillar of gold-silver light, concentrated solar and lunar energy, crashed down from the sky directly onto me. I almost died. The energy was so massive it would have vaporized me instantly. Pure survival instinct kicked in. I blasted my cloud spell to maximum and launched myself sideways like a cannonball. The light pillar hit where I'd been standing, shook the entire castle, blew tiles off the tower, and sent me tumbling through the air from the shockwave alone. I hung in the sky, drenched in cold sweat, heart hammering, genuinely believing I'd nearly become dust. That was the closest I'd come to death since arriving in this world. Slowly, the pillar faded. The energy condensed into a stable gold-silver vortex hovering above the sun-moon wheel. I floated back cautiously, touched the disc with trembling fingers, and felt it, pure, warm, impossibly vast magic flowing into me. Solar warmth and lunar calm, perfectly blended, healing my rattled body and exhausted spirit. I couldn't help it. A villain's cackle burst out of me before I caught myself and slapped my hand over my mouth, face burning red. The formation was alive and working. 360 nodes breathing underground, converting celestial energy into pure, usable magic. Still ramping up, still stabilizing, but already producing more power than anything I'd built before. Once it reached full capacity, the output would be thousands of times what it currently generated. I floated back to my room, hugged the sun-moon will like a teddy bear, and connected to the full network through spiritual sense. Every node pulsing, every conversion circuit accelerating, the whole system learning to breathe on its own. Maple Ridge finally had its true heart. 2 weeks after activation, the star formation exceeded all expectations. Magic concentration inside the castle became absurdly dense, thick enough to feel in every breath, strong enough to sustain 10 rank for mages easily. Even ordinary garden plants started growing like magic herbs, and moss with magical properties appeared in wall cracks. But success created a new problem. The existing rank 3 gathering arrays couldn't contain all this energy. Excess magic was leaking outward, especially toward the western and northern forests, acting like a beacon for every monster in the region. I could sense low-level creatures stirring and gathering at the forest edges. Rather than panic, I saw opportunity. Monster meat could become magical food for the territory. Their hides, bones, and claws were perfect materials for magic scrolls, enchanted leather armor, and bone weapons. The invasion was actually a free delivery of crafting materials. Still, passive overflow needed active management. The best solution: absorb the excess magic into massive farming operations. I designed 10 combination array fields, each pairing a rank 2 gathering array with a rank 2 5-element cultivation array, creating self-contained magical farmland zones. 3 days of furnace work produced all 20 array sets. Half a day of flying around barefoot on clouds got them all installed and activated across the flatlands near the castle. 9 fields went to mass-producing the 5 rank 1 night training plants. 1 field was reserved for the 7 rare rank 2 plant varieties, small quantities but strategically vital as seed stock. And in the castle's most protected garden spot, right near the star formation's core, I personally planted 3 precious rank 3 moonlight flower seeds, the key ingredient for spirit-enhancing potions. The magic fields glowed faintly under their array barriers. Farmers entered with awe, planting seeds in soil that practically hummed with energy. Growth rates would be explosive. I sat on a garden rock, bare feet dangling, watching the forest to the west. The magic leak was still drawing creatures closer. Their restless hunger pulsed through my spiritual sense like distant drumbeats. I smiled. Come on in, little material packages. Maple Ridge has plenty of room for you in our warehouses. The 10 magic farms were helping, but barely made a dent. The star formation pumped out far more magic than the territory could absorb. Excess energy kept leaking into the surrounding forests, drawing monsters closer by the day. The old rank 3 gathering arrays were stable, but couldn't stop the overflow. I needed people who could actually use magic, not just sword-swinging knights, but real mages who could craft scrolls, brew potions, and maintain arrays. Plus more trained knights. The solution: build a magic academy and a knight academy. 2 institutions to turn raw population into skilled workers and fighters. First step: find talent. I spent 1 sleepless night crafting 100 simple testing discs. Put your hand on it, and it glows brighter the more magical talent you have. I dumped the box on Calvin at breakfast and told him to test every person under 20 in the entire territory, serf or free citizen. How to organize it was his problem. Second step: build the schools. I flew out to Carlos, who was happily bossing around construction workers on a road project. When I told him I needed 2 entire academy complexes built in 1 month, his reaction was pure dragon joy, an earth-shaking roar, wings spread wide, eyes blazing with architectural passion. I tossed him the design scrolls and pointed him toward Violet for materials. He abandoned the road project mid-sentence and rocketed toward the castle like a red missile. The monster situation was actually turning into an advantage too. Their meat, hides, bones, and claws were valuable crafting materials, magical food, enchanted leather, bone weapons, scroll bases. Every creature drawn in by our magic overflow was essentially a free resource delivery. Now I just had to wait. Calvin screaming 70,000 people for talent, and Carlos channeling his obsessive construction energy into raising 2 academy buildings from nothing. Meanwhile, the star formation hummed underground. The magic farms sprouted their first green shoots, and somewhere in the dark forests, hungry things crept closer to the light. 1 month later, both academies stood, rough, unfinished on the outside, but structurally complete. Carlos had delivered exactly as promised. The Magic Academy was all gray stone and exposed beams, built for maximum durability in his signature, indestructible style. The Knight Academy was pure functional fortress, cement training grounds, boulder obstacle courses, a massive empty weapons hall. Decorating could wait. The bones were solid. Calvin's territory-wide screening had found 243 young people with magical talent out of 70,000, far more than I expected. Most were children of serfs, which made sense given the population ratio. Their parents brought them to the academy gates with a mix of pride and anxiety, urged them to study hard, and watched them walk through doors that could change their entire futures. I showed up for opening day as the academy's first headmaster. Floated onto the lecture platform in front of 243 wide-eyed teenagers, all staring at me like I'd descended from heaven. The attention made my ears turn red. I'm not built for public speaking. I kept it short, handed out copies of a basic meditation manual I'd prepared, told them to spend half the day exploring the campus, and said real classes would start tomorrow morning. Then I flew out the window before anyone could ask questions. Not my proudest moment as an educator, but I'd done my part. The nights would handle orientation, room assignments, and daily logistics. My job was designing the curriculum and teaching the advanced material, not babysitting 200 nervous teenagers on their first day. Back at the castle, I could feel the star formation humming steadily underground, the magic farms growing, and now 2 academies filling with future mages and knights. The pieces were falling into place. Maple Ridge was building its own talent pipeline, the one thing no amount of money or magic could shortcut. My mornings now belonged to the academy's top 20-odd students, the ones with the strongest spiritual talent. I'd activate a subtle stardust array on the meditation hall ceiling, letting the gentlest traces of lunar energy drift down like invisible mist. The students would sit, close their eyes, and let it wash through their minds without forcing anything. 2 hours of this daily, and their spiritual foundations were growing noticeably stronger, cleaner, more refined. Patient gardening, plant seeds, add water, wait. Afternoons were a different world entirely. I flew east to Mapletown's new industrial district, massive stone and cement factory buildings with tall chimneys belching white smoke. This was my crude but functional magical steel mill, built from my own designs. The centerpiece was a magic smelting furnace the size of a small hill, made from obsidian infused with jade powder. A rank 2 energy-gathering array fed it ambient magic, converting the territory's overflowing magical surplus into raw industrial heat. Knights in heat-resistant armor worked the machinery, mechanical arms, gear systems, chain hoists, feeding crushed iron ore into the blazing furnace mouth. Molten iron flowed like golden lava through channels into casting pools, then into molds pre-etched with reinforcement runes. Steam-powered forging hammers shaped the rough castings. Wind magic polishing stations smoothed the surfaces. The whole operation was loud, hot, and primitive by any modern standard, but it worked. Magic as the energy source, knights as the heavy labor force, runes ensuring quality at critical points. A magical industrial revolution in miniature. The rising magic tide was actually boosting output beyond expectations. The furnace's gathering array was pulling in so much ambient energy that core temperatures were pushing toward rank 2 levels, even though the equipment was only rated for rank 1. Free performance upgrade, courtesy of whatever cosmic event was flooding the world with magic. Teaching in the morning, inspecting factories in the afternoon. Academy students learning to sense magic for the first time, while a few buildings away, knights poured molten steel into molds. 2 halves of Maple Ridge's future being built simultaneously, knowledge and industry, side by side. The star formation's magic overflow was doing exactly what I predicted, drawing monsters from the deep forests. Kobold scouts, ratmen swarms, and goblin raiding parties were hitting the outer villages. Mostly nuisance-level threats, but 7 goblin attacks on villages in 1 month meant it was getting worse. The real predators, anything rank 3 or above, hadn't shown yet, but they were coming. The Cloudwater Vale defense array kept the core territory safe. Monsters couldn't penetrate the barrier around the castle, town, farms, and factories. Only the outer villages were exposed. I assigned 200 knights to permanent patrol and extermination duty along the forest edges, kill small groups on sight, retreat, and call for help if they spot anything over 50 strong or rank 3. As for the inevitable big gathering of monsters, I'd handle that personally when the time came. One well-placed meteor strike into a monster horde would solve things nicely. My next priority was energy storage. The magic steel mill ran on a rank 2 gathering array that pulled ambient magic in real time, but supply fluctuated with the magic tide's natural rhythm. I needed a way to stockpile magic for peak demand, basically manufacture magic crystals. Mother's gift of 100 rank 3 crystals gave me the perfect reference template. I started deduction on a formation that could compress free-floating magic into solid rank 1 crystals. Reverse engineering from the rank 3 sample, simplifying the energy structure, finding the compression threshold, a massive challenge, but achievable. While walking through the castle garden to clear my head, I noticed something I'd forgotten about, that branch from the tree of life I'd stolen from Father's vault. I'd stuck it in a garden corner months ago and completely ignored it. It looked dead, dry, cracked bark, no roots, no growth. But when I scanned it with maximum spiritual sensitivity, deep in the very center of the driest fiber, I found the faintest possible trace of something. Not life exactly, but the memory of life. A seed-like dormancy, so deep it was almost indistinguishable from death. Not dead yet. Maybe. I told the gardener to prepare special soil around it. Moonlight flower compost mixed with earth vein amethyst powder, watered daily with pure lake water. A long shot, but if that branch ever woke up, it would be worth more than everything else in Maple Ridge combined. Then I went back to the tower to keep pushing on the magic crystal formation. The pieces were falling into place, slowly, but unmistakably. The monster situation escalated fast. In 2 weeks, the forest edges went from scattered nuisances to a full-blown infestation. Kobolds and ratmen multiplied, goblins raided villages constantly, and now predators were arriving. Wolf packs and leopards drawn by both the magic and the prey-rich environment. I ordered all outer village residents evacuated inside the Cloudwater Vale barrier before anyone got killed. The unharvested crops left behind became bait. Goblins were the worst. No females in their species. They reproduce by capturing females of other races. Their offspring are always goblins, and newborns eat their own mothers when food runs short. A truly vile species. Though one grotesque detail had economic value. Their reproductive organs sold to nobles as aphrodisiacs at surprisingly high prices. The chaos attracted a different kind of creature, human adventurers and mercenaries. They poured into Mapletown paying hefty entry and hunting license fees, eager to farm goblin parts for profit. The town boomed with rough trade, packed taverns, weapons shops, potion stalls. But these were mostly lawless, violent people. Friction with locals was inevitable. Calvin's Night Corps had grown impressively thanks to continuous pill supply. Over 300 at rank 1 high level. 60 had broken through to rank 2, and the remaining 700 were solid rank 1 mid-level. The 5-element battle formation was now standard. 5 knights working as one unit could pin down even rank 2 opponents until reinforcements arrived. 2 or 3 formations together could overwhelm anyone below rank 3. I deployed 40 knights inside town on rotating patrol, 60 more at highway checkpoints, and kept 200 on forest edge extermination duty. My standing order: first offense gets a warning, second offense gets a public beheading. Desperate times, zero tolerance. The one bright spot came in the garden. That dead-looking tree of life branch I'd stolen from Father's vault and forgotten about. After months of special soil treatment and daily watering, I found something incredible. Deep in the tiniest crack near the soil line, my spiritual sense detected a speck of actual green. Not just residual energy this time, but real living tissue. A seed of life stirring after what might have been centuries of dormancy. Tiny as a grain of sand, but unmistakably alive. I knelt there, fingertip hovering over that hairline crack, watching that impossible green glow in my mind's eye. If this branch truly regenerated, it could be the single most valuable thing in all of Maple Ridge. My days fell into a tight rhythm. Morning meditation on a jade platform, then flying to the Magic Academy to teach 243 students. I kept lessons practical, demonstrating elements with real magic, breaking down theory into clear pieces. 2 students, Lena and Rod, were constant headaches with their wild questions about combining opposing elements and creating mage battle formations. I shut them down with a quick demonstration of what happens when fire and water magic collide uncontrolled, a messy explosion. That quieted them fast. Afternoons, reading in the library, feeding my deduction ability with advanced texts on mithril conductivity, ancient elf runes, and material science. Every page strengthened the foundation. The tree of life branch in the garden had sprouted. An actual green bud, rice grain sized but unmistakably alive, glowing faintly in the sunset. After months of careful nurturing with special soil and morning lake water, the impossible had happened. That ancient wood was waking up. That same evening, the breakthrough I'd been chasing finally clicked. The last stubborn nodes in the magic crystal condensation formation resolved themselves, probably inspired by witnessing life emerge from what everyone assumed was dead wood. The complete formation model stabilized in my mind. Next morning after class, I crafted the device, a 3-foot diameter ring of sea blue crystal with thousands of micro-runes on its inner surface. The key innovation was a harmony array that forcefully aligned mixed attribute magic into neutral energy before compression, solving the instability problem that makes wild magic crystallization impossible. I flew high above the castle and activated it. The ring pulled ambient magic into a spinning multicolored vortex at its center. 10 minutes later, a chicken egg-sized blue crystal formed. Success. Except it wasn't. My enhanced senses caught a subtle instability inside. Residual attribute conflicts the harmony array had been slightly too slow to catch. I flicked the crystal away just in time. It exploded over the empty lake like a magical grenade, sending up a massive water column and startling the entire castle. I calmed everyone down, analyzed exactly where the timing lag occurred in the harmony array's response cycle, made a precise micro-adjustment, and ran it again. The second crystal came out perfect, smooth, stable, warm to the touch, with completely harmonized internal energy. A genuine rank 1 magic crystal, manufactured from thin air. Maple Ridge could now produce its own magic crystals, the universal hard currency of the magical world. Energy storage, industrial fuel, trade goods, cultivation aids, all from ambient magic that was literally overflowing from the territory anyway. I floated above the lake holding that little blue crystal, quietly satisfied. Below me, servants were still peering nervously out of windows from the earlier explosion. A small price for a very large step forward. The successful magic crystal changed everything. Suddenly, I had a portable, mass-producible energy source, and my mind went straight to weapons. That first unstable crystal exploding over the lake was the spark. If a failed crystal could blast a crater in water, what could a deliberately weaponized one do? I thought cannon first, then immediately jumped further. Why make something stationary when I could build something mobile? 8 days of deduction produced a complete blueprint for a magic tank. All rank 1 arrays integrated into one vehicle. Eagle-eye detection for 360-degree awareness. Earth walk and mechanical transmission runes for treads. Stone skin plus reinforcement arrays for armor. Wind arrow acceleration for the cannon. White jade for the barrel and armor plating. Regular iron and copper for everything else. Powered by magic crystals. The shells were simple. A small jade activation module embedded in a magic crystal, sealed in an iron casing. Push in some battle energy to arm it. Load it. Fire. Different crystal elements meant different damage types. I built the whole thing in one session at the ocean furnace. A blue-gold tracked war machine about 3 meters long and 1 meter tall. I named it the Bedrock Type I. Then I dragged Calvin to an empty valley for testing. His face when the tank materialized was priceless. I taught him to drive. Embarrassingly simple controls, just a few rune buttons on a jade panel with a basic radar display. The ride was smooth thanks to internal stabilization arrays. Then we fired the cannon. The first standard shell hit a house-sized boulder hundreds of meters away and vaporized it, leaving a 10-meter scorched crater. Rank 2 destructive power from a rank 1 crystal. We spent the entire afternoon blowing things up. Fire element shells turned bushes into infernos. Earth element rounds cracked the ground open. Ice shells flash froze a tree into a crystal sculpture that shattered on impact. Every shot was devastating in its own way. Calvin, a battle-hardened rank 2 knight, was shaking with excitement by the end. He understood immediately. This machine could massacre rank 1 monsters by the hundreds and seriously threaten rank 2 opponents. A mobile fortress that anyone with basic training could operate. I noted the flaws too. Detection range was limited, turning could be smoother, and the armor wouldn't hold against rank 2 magic attacks. Room for improvement. But as a first prototype, the Bedrock Type I exceeded expectations. I stored the tank back in my dimensional necklace. We flew home through the sunset, my ears still perked up from excitement, face smudged with smoke residue. Maple Ridge's military technology had just leaped forward by an era, and this was only version 1. I spent the next stretch mass-producing tanks, 19 more Bedrock Type I units with upgraded stabilization, temperature control, and armor reinforcement arrays. 20 total. Calvin, meanwhile, nearly destroyed the Knight barracks with the prototype. He'd been running combat maneuver training inside the camp, which meant driving through walls, flattening storage buildings, and carving trench lines across the parade ground. His excuse? You said you could fix it. I docked 3 months of pay from every Knight involved and banished them to Shattered Stone Valley, 30 miles out, where they could crash into rocks instead of my property. Carlos got stuck with cleanup duty, grumbling about being everyone's handyman dragon. I also set up a shell production line. I crafted the Jade activation modules in bulk, then trained a dozen maids to do the simple assembly work. Insert crystal, attach module, seal iron casing. Hundreds of elemental shells rolled out daily. 10 days of brutal training in the valley transformed the Knights from helpless beginners into competent crews. They learned terrain navigation, obstacle avoidance, formation driving, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated attacks. The tanks came back covered in dents, scrapes, and rock dust, but the core structures held. A few maintenance apprentices worked overtime hammering out bent armor plates. When I flew out to inspect on day 10, 20 battle-scarred blue-gold tanks sat in formation, each crewed by 5 hardened Knights. They ran a final drill while I watched, one tank providing cover fire from behind a boulder, another flanking at speed, a third charging straight through from a hillside. Clean, fast, lethal. A wolf pack in steel skin. Calvin marched up, slammed his fist on his chest plate, and reported. First Steel Tank Corps, 20 vehicles, 100 crew, combat ready. Awaiting orders to crush the forest monsters. I looked at those scarred machines, those wind-burned faces, those cold, confident eyes. The forest creatures had no idea what was coming. The Tank Corps rolled out for their first real combat mission against the northern forest monsters. 20 Bedrock Type I units lined up at the forest edge and unleashed a single devastating volley. Fire shells turned clusters of ratmen into charcoal. Ice rounds froze charging wolf packs into shattering sculptures. Earth shells buried entire colonies of burrowing creatures under tons of churned soil. Hundreds of low-level monsters erased in one synchronized blast. The adventurers and mercenaries watching from a distance went pale. Some literally soiled themselves. This wasn't magic. This was industrial extermination. Meanwhile, back in my room, I tried something reckless with the Tree of Life branch. Remembering transmigration novels about blood bonding with magical artifacts, I pricked my finger and dropped a bead of blood onto its tiny sprout. My blood was purple now, another reminder of how deeply the dark elf transformation had changed me. The moment blood touched the bud, the branch came alive. It lashed out like a green lightning bolt, pierced my finger, and burrowed straight into my arm. I could feel it tunneling under my skin, and then it started draining my blood at a terrifying rate. I tried fighting back with magic, but the branch suppressed my power. My vision went black. I was sure I'd be drained dry. Then it stopped, as suddenly as it started. The branch withdrew, fell back into its pot looking slightly greener with a faint purple tint, and I collapsed onto the floor completely spent. Pale as death, barely able to breathe. When I managed to raise my arm, I found a tiny mark on my inner wrist, a seed wrapped in a sprouting leaf, drawn in deep green with purple gold edges. It pulsed faintly in rhythm with my heartbeat. The Tree of Life's core had absorbed my blood and transformed into a seed that embedded itself inside my body. A symbiosis. From the mark, a thin stream of incredibly pure life energy trickled out, slowly healing my drained body far more effectively than regular magic. The benefits were immediate and obvious. The risks were unknown. Who controlled this bond? What would the seed become? I covered the mark with my sleeve. This stayed secret. Absolutely no one could know. In the distance, the tank core continued its bombardment of the forest. But lying on my floor, still trembling from blood loss, with an ancient divine tree literally growing inside my arm, the explosions felt very far away. September brought the most beautiful season Maple Ridge had ever seen. Fire-red maples covered every hillside. Golden wheat and amber rice filled the fields below, and the town sat in the middle like a jewel. White walls, dark tile roofs, Eastern-style architecture gleaming in autumn sun. I sat barefoot by a stream eating maple sugar pastries, watching my territory and feeling genuinely proud. This place was unrecognizable from the ruin I'd inherited. The piece was bought with months of relentless tank bombardment. Calvin's 20 bedrock units had systematically flattened the forest edges, goblin nests, kobold caves, ratman tunnels, all blasted to rubble. The tree line had been pushed back miles. Monster casualties were astronomical. The survivors fled deep into the forest in total panic, especially the goblins. Adventurers and mercenaries trailed behind the tank barges, harvesting goblin reproductive organs to sell as aphrodisiacs to nobles. A gold coin each, nearly zero risk since the goblins were already shell-shocked and scattered. The combination of tank terror and organ hunters created something unprecedented. Goblins developed such deep fear of Maple Ridge's borders that entire tribes migrated away permanently, even risking other predators' territories rather than stay near the steel monsters and the humans who harvested their manhood. Ammunition consumption was massive, but Calvin's knights didn't care. In their simple worldview, resupply was the Lord's problem. They just aimed and fired. That evening, alone in my room, I fed another drop of purple blood to the tree of life sprout. It had grown from a rice grain bud into a fingernail-sized translucent green leaf, edged with faint purple light matching my wrist mark. The leaf absorbed my blood instantly, trembling with what felt like satisfaction. Through our bond, I sensed something, not thoughts, but a pure instinctive warmth, like a newborn bird recognizing its parent. I tried reaching deeper into the connection. Nothing complex came back, just vast, forest-deep silence. The sprout had no independent consciousness. Either it was simply too young, or my consciousness served as its own. We were one thing, not two. Under the moonlight, I watched the tiny leaf slowly drink in lunar energy on its own. Whatever this symbiosis would eventually become, it was growing steadily, fed by my blood and the magic-saturated environment I'd built around it. The tank core was burning through ammunition faster than I could make it. Endless bombardment of the forest edges was effective but expensive. I was stuck in the forge mass-producing jade activation modules like a factory drone, mind-numbing, soul-crushing repetition. Meanwhile, the star formation's magic output was being consumed so heavily that the territory's magical advantage was starting to shrink, while the global magic tide kept strengthening everything outside our borders. Two problems needed solving: transportation and labor. For transport, I designed the Maple Type I armored personnel carrier in one day. Simple concept: stretch a tank chassis, strip the turret and heavy armor, maximize interior space for 20 fully armed knights, boost speed with wind arrays. Keep it cheap using mostly iron and copper with minimal jade. Pure troop mover. Fast, tough enough, dirt cheap compared to tanks. For labor, I had a better idea. My 243 Magic Academy students had all reached rank 1 after months of training in the territory's magic-rich environment. Time to put them to work. I spent a day and night building 243 crude rank 1 practice furnaces from cheap gray stone. Ugly, basic, but functional enough for simple crafting. Next morning, every student found a stone furnace waiting for them. I demonstrated the shell activation module crafting process exactly once. Heat control, jade melting, shaping, rune inscription, cooling. 5 steps. Then I handed each student 10 pieces of raw jade and said, "Produce 1 working module today." The workshop erupted into chaos. Fires flared out of control. Jade pieces exploded into powder. Smoke billowed everywhere. Students burned their hair and cut their fingers. Screaming, cursing, crying over ruined materials. 243 first attempts at real crafting, and the failure rate was catastrophic. I sat on the elevated platform, sipped my double sugar maple tea, and calmly read my book through the smoke and noise. Each student got 10 jade pieces per day. Waste them all? Too bad. Hit 30% success rate? Then I'd teach the next step. Until then, keep failing and learning. The Academy students were now my production workforce. Every successful module they made was one less I had to craft myself. Outsourcing felt wonderful.